Chapter 848. Unity Street and Central Street were next to each other. The closest way was through the alley that Hermit was in. Wang Yu was very familiar with this path. According to the address given by Weapon of God, Wang Yu and the others passed through the alley and arrived at Central Street. They then turned and entered another alley before finding Weapon of God's house. Before entering Weapon of God's house, the moment they entered this narrow alley, Wuji and the others were a little uneasy. This place. If there was an ambush team, none of us would be able to escape. Mingdu looked around the alley and rubbed his chin. Chuanjin's people were used to being chased and killed. They had a strong sense of resistance. In this narrow alley, they could feel a murderous aura. Pui pui pui. Shut your stinky mouth. Hearing Mingdu's words, to place one's pride kicked Mingdu to the ground. The others followed up with a few more kicks. Saying such inauspicious words in such an unsafe environment was too much of a taboo. One had to know that Chuanjin's people had a lot of equipment on them. If Mingdu was right. This was also the reason why players had to provide the address of the player who was selling their equipment to them. Gold coins wouldn't drop, and the buyer would at most be killed once. However, if the seller was killed and dropped their equipment, they would suffer a huge loss. The reason why Chuanjin's people dared to come here to trade was because Chuanjin's reputation was very wild in Yuhuiqing. Even big guilds like Blood Alliance and Sword in the Sky didn't dare to do anything to them, let alone the other smaller guilds. However, because of Mingdu's warning, everyone raised their guard. Although they knew that Yuhuiqing's people wouldn't dare to do such a thing, what if there was someone who didn't have eyes? They had been through a lot and it would be disgusting if they failed miserably. Arriving in front of the house, Wang Yu sent a message to Divine Weapon, and the door opened. In the game's setting, the house was also a safe zone. Chuanjin's group lacked a sense of security in the alley, so when the door opened, Chuanjin's group went in noisily. Weapon of God's house was not small. It was also a large conference room. It seemed that this guy really did not lack money. At this time, there were only 2 people sitting in the room. Other than the heavily armored warrior Weapon of God, there was also a middle-aged man who was dressed similarly to Wang Yu. That person was also a grandmaster of combat. He was wearing cloth armor and was drinking from a teacup. In Rebirth, there was a tea set, but there was no tea. Those who liked to show off could only use alcohol in place of tea. It was also very nondescript. Obviously, Divine Weapon didn't expect that there would be so many people coming to Chuanjin to sell their equipment. They were stunned. "Didn't I tell you to come alone?" The expression on Weapon God's face was a little strange. Wang Yu spread his hands helplessly and said, "They want to protect their equipment." Weapon of God's face darkened as he looked at the middle-aged man not far away and sent a private message. "What should we do?" The middle-aged man replied without changing his expression, "You came at the right time. I was worried about finding them one by one." After replying, the middle-aged man stood up and laughed. "There are only the 2 of us here. You don't need so many people to protect the equipment, do you?" The middle-aged man obviously misunderstood. The protective equipment that Wang Yu mentioned was to guard against Wuji. The middle-aged man thought that Wuji was talking about it and laughed. I said that too, but it is necessary for them. The middle-aged man glanced at the Chuanjin people behind Wuji and laughed coldly. At this time, Wuji said again, "If I'm not wrong, this is the Wudong Universe boss who is the only martial artist." "How do you know?" The middle-aged man was stunned and asked in surprise. Wuji pointed at the guild badge on his chest and said, "When it comes to buying equipment, I don't think anyone else would dare to make the decision." The badge on the middle-aged man's chest was the same as Lucifer's. They both had the word Wu. Moreover, the transaction this time was for 10 sets of dark gold equipment. This was a huge sum of money. Those who did not have the right to speak in the guild would definitely not have the right to discuss it. They had long heard that Wudong Universe was a grandmaster of combat, so this person in front of them was most likely Wudong Universe. Haha. Wudong Universe laughed and said, I've long heard that Leader Wuji is extraordinarily intelligent. Today I've seen that you live up to your reputation. Since we've already said this, we can't help but speak openly. Leader Wuji, do you know why I'm here this time? I do. Wuji smiled and said, to buy equipment. You name a price. As long as my brothers are satisfied, we'll consider this business deal a done deal. What kind of person was Wuji? From the moment he saw Wudong Universe's identity, Wuji knew Wudong Universe's purpose. This son of AB*TCH really wanted to play dirty. After all, they were in Yu Huiqing's hands now, and the equipment was in the hands of Chuanjin's people. Of course, Wudong Universe knew that it was not good to deal with Chuanjin's people in Yu Huiqing's place. The reason why Wudong Universe asked Wang Yu to bring the equipment to him was to take down Wang Yu. Then, the people at the revival point would take turns to farm Wang Yu until all the equipment was dropped. This way, it would save effort, and it would not cause a commotion. As for Chuanjin's revenge for stealing the equipment, there was still a long way to go. To be able to come up with such a despicable idea, it could be seen that these martial arts revered people were quite smart. However, these smart people neglected a very important problem, and that was, how could the people of the Chuanjin sect use normal thinking to guess? The meaning behind Wuji's words was also very clear. Our brothers are all here. If you don't satisfy us, I'm afraid we won't be able to talk about the deal. Name a price. Wudong Universe frowned and said with a cold smile, Leader Wuji, are you kidding me? This equipment is ours to begin with. Boss Universe, is this your first time playing? Wuji asked. Look at my age. Do I look like it's my first time? People in the gaming circle hated it when people looked down on their gaming age. Wudong Universe was a little unhappy with Wuji's words. Isn't that right? Wuji said. Since you've played for so long, have you seen a player who lost equipment in PK and still had the cheek to say that the equipment was his? Wuji's words stunned Martial Moves Universe. After playing the game for so long, Martial Moves Universe was well aware of the unspoken rules of the game. Claiming that the equipment belonged to you after it was dropped was the typical behavior of a primary school student. But even though he said that, Martial Moves Universe felt that something was wrong. Wudong Qianquan's face turned red at first, then he finally realized what was wrong, so he asked Wuji in an interrogative tone, I heard that you were the one who took this equipment from my brother. Chapter 849. Does that mean that Wuji is determined to keep the equipment for himself? Seeing how determined Wuji was, Wudong Universe's expression became even uglier. Wuji smiled. That's new. As long as the price is right, there's no need to worry about selling all this good equipment. Chuanjin is easy to negotiate with. As long as you pay, we'll sell it. Don't you feel guilty? Wudong Universe said angrily. Wuji's meaning was clear. If Wudong Universe didn't buy the equipment, he would sell it to someone else. With the current demand for dark gold equipment, Wudong Universe definitely wouldn't doubt the market's demand. Seeing how fearless Wuji was, he definitely wouldn't think that Wudong Universe was the only one who could sell the equipment. Wudong Universe had been in the gaming circle for so long, and no one had ever dared to treat him like this. Now that Wuji had made it clear that Wudong Universe had to suffer in silence, how could Wudong Universe tolerate him? Guilty? Wuji laughed. I got the equipment with my own strength. What's there to feel guilty about? Okay. Wudong Universe said, then sneered. In that case, we can only get the equipment back. Legendary weapon, send them off. The Divine Armament responded and casually revoked the authority of the Quan Zhen sex group. With a flash of white light, the people of Chuanjin were teleported into that narrow alley. Immediately after, Wudong Universe and the Divine Weapon chased after them. Just as Chuanjin was about to get rid of Wudong Universe and Legendary Weapon, Wuji suddenly said, Ignore them. Let's get out of here first. This was a typical ambush. Once they were surrounded, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chuanjin naturally understood what Wuji meant. After Wuji said that, they ran out. However, they hadn't taken more than a few steps when a row of shield warriors smashed their shields onto the ground, crisscrossing each other to block the entrance of the alleyway in front of them. The shield warriors crouched down, revealing a row of arrows at the gap where their shields crossed. Behind the shield bearers and archers, there were mages, warriors, and other occupations. There was a dense mass of people, at least a few hundred of them. They surrounded the entire intersection. Other than retreating, Chuanjin's men had no choice but to retreat. Wuji saw that things were not looking good and decisively ordered, "Go back." Upon receiving the order, the Chuanjin people turned around and fled in the opposite direction. However, just as they turned around, they realized that the other end of the alley was also filled with people. It was also a dark mass of people, completely blocking the other end of the alley. "Damn it, we've been surrounded." Seeing the two groups of people blocking the way, the Quanjin group's hearts sank. If they were on a wide road, it would be fine. No matter how tight the encirclement of hundreds of people was, there would still be loopholes. But now that everyone was blocked in an alley, the space for escape was much smaller. Not to mention the hundreds of players chasing after them, even a team of several dozen players would be covered in a single wave of attack. Sure enough, Marshall Shakes the Universe had some tricks up his sleeve. Chuanjin's group was relatively difficult to deal with. They had experienced countless battles, large and small. Yet, none of the guilds had managed to force them into such a corner with so few players. "Are we still going to run? Why don't we fight it out with them?" Seeing that they were surrounded by players, Bao San's courage returned. He brandished his greatsword, intending to risk his life. Exquisite Dream slapped the back of Bao San's head. "Nonsense. If we don't run, are we going to borrow arrows from a straw boat? Where do we run?" Yin Lao Er asked anxiously. The houses on both sides of the alley were different from the houses on the street. The houses on the street were built from short to tall. Players could easily reach them with their movement skills. However, the houses on both sides of the alley were completely different. Currently, the buildings on both sides of the alley where the Quan Zhen sect was located were incomparably tall. Players wouldn't even be able to see the sunlight, so they definitely wouldn't be able to reach the top with just a few movement skills. Even if Wuji could fly, with so many people surrounding him, he wouldn't be able to guarantee his safety. In order to prevent the Quan Zhen sect's players from escaping, Martial Movement's universe had really gone to great length. Clearly, Marshall Shakes the Universe did not underestimate Quan Zhen's team. After all, they were a team that could easily break through a 200-man encirclement. Even with the help of the guards, ordinary players couldn't accomplish such a feat at this moment. Wuji said, "We can't run anymore. Have Old Cow take the equipment and leave first." Saying so, Wuji waved his staff. A red light flew out and enveloped Yin Lao Er. At this time, Marshall Only's arrows and spells were already flying over. Yin Lao Er gritted his teeth and raised his shield, blocking the attack from the left. Chun Xiang summoned a demon and Angela to block the attack from the right. The others hurriedly tossed the equipment in their bags to the ground for Wang Yu to pick up. The alleyway wasn't that big, and only Valiant had several hundred people with him. The level of attack was very clear, and as soon as the first round of attacks fell, the second wave of attacks followed closely behind, blasting Chun Xiang and Yin's second brother. There were no weaklings among the players of the big guilds. Their equipment and mechanics were all at a high level. Even if Chun Xiang and Yin Lao Er could tank, they couldn't withstand the continuous attacks. In the first round of attacks, Chun Xiang and the demon were completely annihilated. In the second round of attacks, Angela and Chun Xiang both died. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly stood in front of Wang Yu. At the same time, Marshall Only's third round of attacks fell. Apart from Yang Na and Bao San, everyone else was killed. At this time, Yin Lao Er's invincibility ended. Yin Lao Er, who had put away his shield, was instantly reduced to critical health. This was the power of the big guilds. No matter how high an expert you were or how overpowered your equipment was, once you were surrounded, you wouldn't even have the chance to fight back, let alone fight back. There was no helping it. No one could withstand this kind of continuous attack. Chuanzhen's group was already very fierce. They were able to last until the 4th round. If it was anyone else, they probably wouldn't even be able to withstand the first round of attacks and would be killed. There were only so many ways a big guild could bully a small guild. First, they would work together to surround and kill, then ambush Luan Bai at the resurrection point. Naturally, Marshall only had a high level of proficiency with Marshall only. When he gave the order to surround Chuanzhen's group, he had already arranged for people to surround the resurrection point. If Chuanzhen's group died, they wouldn't be able to return in time to provide support. Seeing that Marshall Only's 4th round of attacks was about to reach his head, Wu Ji casually slapped a holy light shield to protect Wang Yu. Then, a rain of arrows fell. Wu Ji, Bao San, and Yang Na transformed into white lights and disappeared before Wang Yu's eyes. Under the protection of the invincibility effect, the attacks that landed on Wang Yu were all deflected. At the same time, Wang Yu picked up the last piece of equipment. "You'll regret this." Wang Yu turned his head to look at Marshall Only and said these words. He then leaped into the air. Facing the attacks from both sides, Wang Yu jumped 4 times in a row and disappeared from everyone's sight. Humph! Seeing Wang Yu escape, Marshall Only snorted indifferently. He then turned to the 2 players in the alley and said, "Everyone, chase him down the street. Keep the equipment on that brat. Don't let him escape." Chapter 850. The scene in the alley was witnessed by Wang Yu on the rooftop. Seeing that the martial supremacy players had really left, Wang Yu couldn't help but send a message to Wu Ji, "Hey, they're really gone." "Of course," Wu Ji replied calmly. "You can go down and get rid of martial supremacy now." "Okay," Wang Yu replied, pressed the eaves, and jumped down from the roof. It turned out that Wu Ji had instructed Wang Yu from the beginning not to rush to escape once they were on the roof. They were to wait on the roof for the only martial artist to leave before jumping down to finish off martial artist universe. The reason why Wu Ji was so confident was because he knew that Wu Dongqian Kuan's main goal was the equipment. Now that the equipment was in Wang Yu's hands, the others were basically unimportant. All he needed to do was to restrain the others and not let them come out and cause trouble. Of course, Wu Ji also knew that a large guild like Martial Supremacy had tens of thousands of players. It was unrealistic for a dozen or so people to go against them. Moreover, they didn't lack people. Even if you killed a few hundred of them, they wouldn't feel the slightest bit of pain, but if they killed 10 of you, you would be completely wiped out. Therefore, it was absolutely impossible to deal with martial supremacy recklessly. Every kill had to be an effective one. What was an effective kill? An effective kill was the simplest way to make martial supremacy feel pain. Therefore, the most effective way was to kill the core members of martial supremacy who had the right to speak. Only martial supremacy had more than 10 core members, but the Quan Zhen sect only knew one of them, and that was Wu Dongqian. As the leader of martial supremacy, Wu Dongqian definitely had the most authority. Killing him was definitely more effective than killing anyone else. There was no need to make martial supremacy a chicken feather or duck blood. As long as martial supremacy was afraid, Chuanzhen would have achieved his goal. Wu Dongqian had sent all his subordinates to hunt down Wang Yu. Just as he was about to return to his house to indulge in the thrill of strategizing, he suddenly heard a loud shout from the sky, "Where are you running, monster?" "Sorry, that's wrong. It should be trying to run after acting like a hero." Following that, a figure descended from the sky. That person was tall and sturdy, holding a long staff in his hand. Who else could it be but Wang Yu? Without waiting for Wu Dongqian to make a move, Divine Armament Sharp Weapon stepped forward and raised his two-handed sword horizontally, wanting to block Wang Yu. Divine Weapon. This brat had deceived Wang Yu and caused everyone in Xuanzhen to die without a burial ground. Wang Yu had long wanted to kill him. Now that he had taken the initiative to come out and die, he was playing right into Wang Yu's hands. Wang Yu took a step in the air and thrust the staff in his hand forward. It passed through the gap between Divine Weapon and stabbed Divine Weapon's nose. Oh my God! Divine Armament, who had been stabbed by Wang Yu, felt his nose sting. He screamed and closed his eyes involuntarily, squeezing out a few drops of tears. At the same time, Wang Yu turned the staff in his hand back into a glove and flipped it forward to the back of Divine Armament Sharp Weapon's head. Then, he stabbed the fingers of his right hand into Divine Armament Sharp Weapon's nostril. The instant Wang Yu landed, Divine Armament Sharp Weapon's head was involuntarily pulled back. At this time, Wang Yu wrapped his left hand around Divine Armament Sharp Weapon's throat and used neck snap. Divine Armament Sharp Weapon was a strength-type weapon, so his HP was not too high. After taking 3 hits from Wang Yu at his vitals, he turned into a flash of white light. However, no matter how low Divine Armament Sharp Weapon's HP was, he was still a warrior. It had only been 3 seconds since Wang Yu jumped off the roof and landed on the ground, yet he had actually killed a warrior with just a raise of his hand. This caused Wu Dongqian Kuan to be slightly shocked. However, this hint of surprise disappeared quickly. Looking at Wang Yu, who was wiping his hands on the wall in front of him, Wu Dongqian Kuan chuckled and said, "Young man, not bad. You blocked my way and killed my people." Wang Yu also laughed and said, "You're not bad either. You saw me kill someone and yet you didn't run." "Humph. Young man, don't be so arrogant." Wu Dongqian Kuan snorted and said, "Your little ability is not enough." Then Wu Dongqian Kuan said, "In the end, you're just a normal person. You don't know what Kung Fu is. I advise you to hand over your equipment." "Is that so?" Wang Yu looked at Wu Dongqian Kuan, who was pretending and could not help but ask, "I heard that you can fight a regiment of People's Liberation Army? Hee, since you know how powerful I am, why don't you hurry up and surrender?" Wu Dongqian Kuan said with a sneer. "I don't believe it." Wang Yu waved his finger and said, "Don't talk about a regiment of People's Liberation Army. I don't think you can even beat a police dog in reality." Wang Yu's words were not groundless. Before seeing Wu Dongqian Kuan, Wang Yu still maintained an ambiguous attitude towards Wu Dongqian Kuan's strength. However, after seeing Wu Dongqian Kuan, Wang Yu could basically affirm that this grandson was a big liar. People who practiced martial arts were the same as soldiers. They fought and killed, so they had to undergo a lot of training. Whether it was muscles or reactions, they were much better than ordinary people. Even when they walked, they were much more stable than ordinary people. On the other hand, Wu Dongqian Kuan walked lightly and swayed. He did not look like a person who practiced martial arts at all. It was as if he was bragging. Bullshit. Wu Dongqian Kuan's face immediately darkened after hearing Wang Yu's words. He spread his arms like he was hugging a ball and said, "Today, I will let you see what Kung Fu is." Seeing Wu Dongqian Kuan's posture, Wang Yu smiled slightly and said, "What Kung Fu is this?" "Tai Chi." Wu Dongqian Kuan said with a serious expression. "Don't insult Tai Chi." Wang Yu's face was filled with black lines as he stepped forward, grabbing Wu Dongqian Kuan's outstretched arm with one hand. His right leg extended towards Wu Dongqian Kuan's heel as he exerted force with his shoulder, slamming into Wu Dongqian Kuan. Before Wu Dongqian Kuan could react, he was thrown to the ground. When an expert made a move, it was obvious whether or not he was skilled. Wu Dongqian Kuan's posture might be able to fool old people and old ladies, but in front of Wang Yu, he revealed his true colors. Fortunately, it was not Yang Na here. Otherwise, who knew how Yang Na would deal with Wu Dongqian Kuan's actions of smearing Tai Chi's reputation? It should be known that women were much more ruthless than men when they were angry. It was true that Wu Dongqian Kuan was a great swindler, but to be able to become the boss of Wu Dongqian Kuan and the captain of a professional squadron, he definitely had some ability. After being thrown to the ground by Wang Yu, Wu Dongqian Kuan did a backflip and quickly used quick recover. With a fierce stomp of his feet, he floated out of Wang Yu's attack range. Against the wind. This was a movement skill of Qi masters. It was a movement skill that relied on one's inner strength to move backwards. Although it wasn't as fast and violent as Collapsing Fist, it had the demeanor of a grandmaster. It was an essential skill for Qi masters to show off. Although Wu Dongqian Kuan had been thrown to the ground by Wang Yu, he was still a classic king of Allmouth. His face had been thrown all the way to his grandmother's house, yet he still continued to talk. "Young man, you've already been hit by my inner strength. Hurry up and go see a doctor." Faced with such a shameless person, Wang Yu was completely speechless. He took a step forward and blocked the door. Chapter 851. As he got into position, Wu Dongqian muttered, "Good lad, Taiji Fist can't do anything to you. This time, I'll show you my 8 trigram palm." What kind of hearing did Wang Yu have? Wu Dongqian's words entered Wang Yu's ears at such a close distance. Seeing that Wu Dongqian was going to destroy 8 trigram palm after destroying Taiji Fist, Wang Yu's anger burned to his head. 8 trigram palm was so miserable that it was about to be cut off, but Wu Dongqian was still using the name of 8 trigram palm to swindle people. Now that he was in the hands of Wang Yu, the last successor of 8 trigram palm, there was no way he could get away scot-free. 8 trigram palm my ass! Even though Wang Yu had cultivated his body and mind for many years, the murderous aura that he had cultivated for many years burst forth. With a roar, he took a step forward and raised his palms, slapping them at Wu Dongqian. Apart from swindling people, Wu Dongqian was quite strong. Seeing Wang Yu rush over, his figure flashed, and he activated Headwind Step to fly back lightly. At the same time, he crossed his palms and slapped the air 3 times. 3 palm-shaped flames flew in an arc towards Wang Yu. Fire Cloud Palm could attack the target 3 times with fire element magic, and it also had a burning attribute. The Grandmaster of Combat class was already rare in Rebirth. Even if they chose to be a Grandmaster of Combat, most of the players would choose the Striker class, which was agile and had thick skin. As a result, the number of Qi Master players in the game could be counted in the tens of thousands. The number of Qi Masters that could be considered experts could be counted on one hand. If they really had to be ranked, Wu Dongqian would definitely be one of them. The Fire Cloud Palm of ordinary Qi Masters would be launched in a straight line, attacking the target one after the other. Wu Dongqian's hands trembled, and the 3 Fire Cloud Palms flew towards Wang Yu from 3 directions, locking down all of Wang Yu's dodging points. However, no matter how good Wu Dongqian was, he was only a fake master in Kung Fu. When it came to the fearsomeness of a true martial artist, his knowledge couldn't even compare to that of Chuanjin. 8 trigram palm was also known as the Wandering Palm. Before practicing the palm, one had to practice the movement technique first. Wang Yu's 8 trigram palm was already in the realm, so he naturally didn't care about Wu Dongqian's attacks. Wang Yu lowered his head, crouched down, and turned around, directly passing through Wudong Qiankuan's 3 Fire Cloud Palms. Before Wudong Qiankuan could react, Wang Yu had already flown over and raised his palm to chop Wudong Qiankuan's neck. Wu Dongqian was only a Qi master, Qi and Qian. Wu Qian was Qian. Wu Qi master a Wu Dongqian, Wu and Wu didn't. Wu Qian. And Dongqian and A Wu. And Wu did not. Wu tu with you a Dongqian. Yang. Palm. Wu Qian Wu of. Wu Qian Wu. Wu is. Dead. Wang Yu answered honestly. Run. Their people are going back. Come to the revival point and save us. We can help you, said Wu Ji. Although Wu Dongqian-wu was dead, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. In a guild as big as Wu Dongqian, Wang Yu would not be able to do much without help. The people from Chuanjin were good at guerrilla warfare. At the very least, they could help Wang Yu share some of the pressure. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu rejected. "You guys can rest at the revival point for now. This is a personal grudge between me and Wu Dongqian-kun." Personal grudge? This isn't the first time you've met? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Wu Ji was stunned. The two of them didn't know each other at first. Could it be that Wang Yu was kicked in the crotch by Wu Dongqian-wu? Wang Yu's family was particular about many things. One of them was to be unfilial and have no descendants. This was definitely a blood feud. It has nothing to do with when we met. This is about the pride of a martial artist, Wang Yu said. He closed the chat window and leaped onto the wall. Wu Ji was not a martial artist. He could not understand Wang Yu's words. The history of Huaxia Kung Fu could be traced back to more than 5,000 years of Huaxia's history. Even 100 years ago, Huaxia Kung Fu had not declined. There was even a saying that Huaxia Kung Fu had a long history. In the history of China, although Kung Fu had risen and fallen a few times, it had always blossomed due to the chaos of war. However, when cold weapons were no longer seen by humans, Kung Fu also gradually faded. However, due to people's yearning for the strong, Kung Fu did not decline. Instead, it was gradually turned into a myth. At this time, some swindlers like Wu Dongqian-wu began to use the tiger's skin as a banner. Under the guise of Kung Fu, they went around swindling people to earn money and cheat people. One of them could fight 100 people alone, while the other had the strength of 1,000 caddies. They used a set of fallacious theories to package themselves as the masters in the myth. Little did they know that the cultivation of Kung Fu was not just a bluff. Instead, it required decades of hard work. Even with Wang Yu's unprecedented talent, he still needed to do all kinds of training every day to strengthen his strength, speed, and reflexes to achieve what he had. How could the empty words of those fake masters last forever? Because of this, the term Kung Fu gradually turned from a myth to a scam. Later on, it was even suspected to be a self-delusion culture. Since then, the path of Kung Fu had never recovered. Now, it had become something that only existed in legend. How sad was that? At the end of the day, the main culprit behind the decline of Kung Fu was those swindlers. Wu Dongqian-wu had used the name of Kung Fu to deceive countless people. How could Wang Yu suppress the anger in his heart when he saw Wu Dongqian-wu, a person who had deceived the thing he had been pursuing for his entire life? At this time, there was only one thought in Wang Yu's mind, and that was to make Wu Dongqian-wu pay the price even if it meant risking his dignity as a martial artist. As Qi masters were not a strong one-on-one class, Wu Dongqian-wu did not realize how terrifying Wang Yu was after he resurrected. He only sighed at Wang Yu's extraordinary skills, then ordered his subordinates to block Wang Yu in the alley while running out of the resurrection point. However, as soon as Wu Dongqian-kun reached the street, he was blocked by a burly figure. When Wudong Universe raised his head and saw that it was Wang Yu, he was shocked. He subconsciously floated backwards, and at the same time, he sent a cloud palm at Wang Yu. Cloud palm was only a low-level skill for grandmasters of combat. Its power was not even comparable to Wave of Will. In front of a high-damage player like Wang Yu, it was obviously not worth mentioning. Wang Yu casually waved his hand, dispersing Marshal Dongqian-kun's cloud hand palm and sending a collapsing fist towards Marshal Dongqian-kun. Seeing Wang Yu flying towards him, Marshal Dongqian-kun landed on the ground and sent a side kick towards Wang Yu's head. Rebirth had always focused on the concept of 8 points in kicks, which was why kicking skills had always had higher priority. Just as Wu Dongqian-kun was about to send Wang Yu into the air with a stomp, Wang Yu suddenly landed on the ground with an eagle stamp. His collapsing fist turned into a ferocious tiger strike as he reached forward and grabbed Wu Dong Qiankuan's ankle. Chapter 852. As a normal man, Wu Dong Qiankuan naturally did not need to be described what was between his legs. Wang Yu's elbow was fast, vicious, sending Wu Dong Qiankuan to the resurrection point once again. Martial Universe's face was dark when he resurrected. Although he could not feel pain in the game, the psychological impact of being hit in a vital area would probably weaken him for a period of time. After being killed by Wang Yu twice in a row, Martial Universe finally had a taste of Wang Yu's strength. Martial Universe had always been proud of himself as an expert, and the people he came into contact with were all experts. However, he had never met such a powerful opponent. After all, no one dared to say that they could instantly kill Wu Dongqian. However, not only did Wang Yu manage to do it, he managed to do it twice in a row. How could Wu Dongqian not be terrified? That Grandmaster of Combat is outside the resurrection point. Everyone, come and capture him. Wu Dong Qiankuan also knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Wang Yu alone. Therefore, he immediately gave the order to surround and attack. Apart from the players surrounding the Quanzhen sect in the alley, Wu Dong Qiankuan had also arranged quite a number of players at the resurrection point. After receiving Wu Dong Qiankuan's order, the ambushing players immediately rushed out of their hiding spots. There were 7 resurrection points in the central street, and more than 100 players rushed out. 100 players was not a big deal in the crowded central street, but 100 of them rushing at Wang Yu at the same time was quite eye-catching. Yu Huiqing's players were shocked when they saw the situation. They hurriedly looked in the direction of Martial Universe's players, wanting to see which god had offended so many people. When everyone saw Wang Yu standing not far from the resurrection point, their sympathetic gazes instantly shifted to Martial Universe's players. F***CK, which guild is he from? Don't you know the rules? Are you tired of living? I don't know, but I'm sure he's a young man. Any veteran player who knew Yu Huiqing would know what taboo Yu Huiqing was most afraid of. Those who dared to go against Wang Yu were either newbies who had just reached level 10, or hotheads who were in their rebellious phase. Adults definitely wouldn't do such a thing. That can't be. Judging from their equipment and levels, they're clearly not low-level players. Could they be from another city? Someone who was more quick-witted cut to the chase. Other major cities? When the crowd heard this, they quickly glanced at the chests of Invincible Supremacy's group. As expected, it was an unfamiliar badge. F***CK. Across City Pursuit? Seeing that the other party was indeed someone from another main city, Yu Huiqing and the others immediately became excited. They all sent messages in their moments and the guild channel. Not good, someone is chasing us across the city. F***CK. Who was so arrogant? Where is he? Let's go and help him. When the Yu Huiqing players saw the message, their fighting spirit surged. As the only major city that had experienced a city war since the launch of Rebirth, the players of Yu Huiqing could be considered experienced. Although the players of Yu Huiqing usually had a good atmosphere, they were actually holding back their anger. After all, how could a game be considered a game if one could not PK? If one PK in their own city, they would be afraid of kicking an iron plate. The players of other cities would not encounter a second Chuanzhen, right? I don't know who it is. He's currently in the central street, but we don't need help for now. The spectators began to comfort their friends. Who's so strong? We don't need help. Iron Ox. Fine, pretend I didn't say anything. It was true that Wang Yu was Yu Huiqing's military strength. However, because he was in cahoots with the scum of Chuanzhen, his reputation was not very good. Some people said that Wang Yu was honest and kind, while others said that Wang Yu killed people like flies. In short, in the eyes of the players of Yu Huiqing, Wang Yu was a person who was neither good nor evil. To move unhindered tens of thousands of players to attack the city, They were all beaten back by Wang Yu alone. Why would he need help for a mere 100 players? What a joke. If this killing god got excited, he might even kill his own people. That would be awkward. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu was already surrounded by 3 layers of martial supremacy's players. Martial supremacy's players were strong and well-equipped. As members of a major guild, their teamwork was even better. After surrounding Wang Yu, the melee players quickly closed the encirclement, while the ranged players attacked Wang Yu in 3 waves. In an instant, arrows mixed with magic flew toward Wang Yu. At the same time, martial supremacy stood at the back of the team and shouted, "Don't let him get away! He's got equipment!" Facing such a strong enemy, Wang Yu's eyes narrowed. He extended the weapon in his hand and transformed it into a long rod. Wang Yu threw away the long rod and leaped forward, knocking down the arrows one by one. At the same time, the magic followed closely behind. The magic that filled the sky did not stop Wang Yu's advance. Wang Yu used blink to dodge the attacks, rolled on the ground, and rolled into the front row of martial supremacy's team. The shield bearers in the front row were tall and sturdy, and with their giant shields in hand, they completely blocked the ranged players' vision. Without vision, the ranged players lost their target, and their attacks were forced to stop. The warriors of martial supremacy swarmed forward. A grandmaster of combat's most effective skill against a warrior with thick skin and thick flesh was the grab skill. However, when it was a one-on-one fight against a group, the grab skill would be stretched thin. Looking at the warriors that surrounded them, Wang Yu smiled slightly and collided with the chubby warrior that was at the front. The chubby warrior was secretly delighted when he saw Wang Yu's suicidal behavior. He raised his greatsword and slashed at Wang Yu. Wang Yu's weapon shook and transformed into a longsword. Immediately after, Wang Yu thrust his short sword forward and blocked the chubby warrior's greatsword. Finally, the chubby warrior slashed at another warrior behind Wang Yu. Ouch! Due to Wang Yu's interference, the chubby warrior's attack was not protected by the team. The chubby warrior slashed cried out in pain, and a number floated above his head. At this moment, the situation was chaotic. No one cared about 2 people. Everyone only had a single target in their hands, and that was Wang Yu. However, the students who had fought in a group battle knew that there were at most 10 people standing around a person when they surrounded him. The warriors with the sole respect for martial arts carried their giant swords, and only 7 or 8 people were able to attack Wang Yu in a circle. Wang Yu's 2 swords, one long and one short, attacked from crafty and sinister angles. Like an endless sea, Wang Yu's attacks were as smooth as flowing water. What made martial supremacy and the others feel even more helpless was that whether it was Wang Yu blocking or attacking, he would always stick close to a certain player. With such a close distance and Wang Yu's sinister actions, no one dared to use their skills. The ranged classes could not help even if they wanted to. They could only attack one after another. Chapter 853. The supremacy players had played the game for half their lives, but none of them had ever seen such a troublesome opponent. Wang Yu weaved through the crowd like a swimming fish. Wherever he went, not a single leaf touched his body. He moved like the wind from the heavens and moved like thunder. His reflexes were quick, his movements smooth, and his attacks precise. He was the first person that the supremacy players had seen in their lives. Seeing Wang Yu's bravery, the supremacy players surrounding Wang Yu, as well as the spectators, were dumbfounded. Compared to Wang Yu's fighting style, which utilized the human body's potential and movement to the limit, these people deeply suspected that their previous fighting style was like 3-year-old children beating each other with wooden sticks. As expected of the legendary god, I, Long Outian, am convinced. The Yu Huiqing players were moved to tears. As a legendary Yu Huiqing player, Wang Yu's feats had always been circulated in jokes and stories. After a long time, people could not help but doubt the authenticity of the story. However, now that they were able to witness Wang Yu fighting against 100 people without being at a disadvantage, they felt as if they were witnessing the protagonist of a novel with their own eyes. Their excitement was at its peak. F***ck. Is this guy even human? Different from the excitement of the Yu Huiqing players, the Supremacy players only had one thought in their mind. Although there were only 7 or 8 people surrounding Wang Yu's fighting style was roaming. The 7 or 8 people were the ones who had the most contact with Wang Yu. The people on the periphery also played a significant role. Wang Yu was able to maneuver around with ease despite being surrounded by nearly 100 people, which made people doubt their own lives. This was especially true for the few players around Wang Yu who were at critical HP. They were even more shocked by Wang Yu. When the system notified them that they were at critical HP, they finally reacted and turned around to run away. How could Wang Yu let them go so easily? Wang Yu leaped into the air and activated the Grandmaster of Combat's signature crowd control move, Flaming Tornado Kick. The raging wind and flames engulfed all the enemies around Wang Yu. At the same time, a circle of white light rose around Wang Yu. It was just like the second special effect of the Flaming Tornado Kick, brilliant and dazzling. Of course, although the strength of the martial supremacy players was far from being as strong as Wang Yu, they were still experts who had experienced hundreds of battles. They would not blindly maintain the status quo. There was a warrior called Fate in the Sky who was very smart. He quickly discovered where Wang Yu's weakness was. Fate in the Sky shouted cleverly, "Everyone, don't attack one by one. Let's attack together and see which one he blocks." As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how powerful Wang Yu was, he was not 8 arms Neza. The reason why he could substitute all the attacks was because everyone's attack frequency was not uniform, and Wang Yu could always find a flaw. If everyone attacked together, they would be invincible. There were many experts in ancient Huaxia. In terms of combat, martial arts practitioners were much stronger than many soldiers who did not even know what kung fu was. However, how could the ancient army suppress martial arts masters? It was because the soldiers of the army were well versed in the art of teamwork. No matter how skilled the opponent was, a row of spears would ensure that the opponent would not be able to dodge. The martial supremacy players had been playing the game for so many years, so they naturally understood Fate in the Sky's words. They exchanged glances, and the players quickly changed from a circular encirclement to a square formation. The number of players attacking Wang Yu also increased from 8 to 12, and the defense around them became stronger. Then, Fate in the Sky shouted 1, 2, 3 inch 3 times in the channel. The players in the circle swung their swords and stabbed at Wang Yu, who was in the middle. If Wang Yu was facing a real soldier, he would probably die here. However, the stupid idea of martial supremacy was just thought of, and it did not have the tacit cooperation of a real soldier. Looking at the longswords stabbing at him from all directions, Wang Yu's figure swayed, and he ignored the attacks and flashed to the side, evading the stab. There was no such thing as an unbeatable strategy. In reality, there was no such thing as a shameless skill like teleportation. However, the martial supremacy players were not easy to deal with. Seeing that Wang Yu evaded the first wave of attacks, they quickly swung their longswords and counted 123 and slashed at Wang Yu with their longswords. Even if Wang Yu's teleportation did not have a cooldown, his MP must be limited. They did not believe that he could dodge every attack. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu leaned back and lay on the ground, evading another wave of attacks. At that time, the martial supremacy players pointed their swords down and stabbed at the ground. Wang Yu flipped over and rolled, almost brushing the edge of the swords as he rolled to the bottom of a row of players' feet. In the end, they were players from big guilds. It was impressive enough that they could force Wang Yu to this extent. Looking at the large hole in the ground not far away, Wang Yu wiped away his cold sweat with lingering fear. He realized that if the martial supremacy players continued to cooperate like this, they would become more and more tacit, and when that time came, they would be even more difficult to deal with. Thinking of this, Wang Yu shouted, "Since you're acting like this, don't blame me for being ruthless." Saying that, Wang Yu, who was lying on the ground, swung his longsword, parrying the arrows shot by the surrounding archers. He aimed his short sword at the 3 players beside him, and stabbed upward 3 times, the sword not leaving the crotch of the player next to him. Ouch! The 3 players who were stabbed in the crotch reflexively bent over to cover their crotches. Wang Yu rolled on the ground, the blade of his long sword lightly slashing across the throats of the 3 players. Critical damage floated up, and the 3 of them turned into white light. Although Wang Yu had killed the 3 players with a raise of his hand, Wang Yu was still lying on the ground. His pathetic appearance gave everyone the false impression that he was about to die. The martial supremacy players looked at each other and swarmed forward. Unfortunately, they had never seen real kung fu. Even Wu Shakes the Universe had only heard about the famous Tai Chi 8 trigrams fist technique. Not many people knew about lying ground punch, a fist technique that originated from military combat, even in the era of martial arts. Not many people knew about it, not to mention these blind people. As the saying goes, one is not afraid of comparing the goods, but afraid of not knowing the goods. A circle of people swarmed forward, and Wang Yu rolled forward, rolling out of the encirclement. Seeing that Wang Yu had escaped, the crowd was just about to turn around and attack again when there was a boom, and all kinds of statuses appeared above everyone's head. It was the 5 Thunder Fruit. The one that Ming Jian Daoxue obtained from Yellow Crane Tower had been given to Wang Yu due to the 5 Thunder Fruit's status control. The circle of people surrounding Wang Yu were either blind or crazy. It was instantly a mess. When the players at the periphery saw this, they hurriedly regrouped and attacked Wang Yu. Wang Yu continued rolling on the ground as he surrounded the inner circle. At the same time, he stabbed out with his 2 arms, one long and one short, at the lower bodies of the players at the 2 sides. The players at the periphery were facing Wang Yu. When faced with Wang Yu's moving around the pillars, they took into account that the pillars Wang Yu was circling around were their companions. The players at the periphery were timid when they attacked. Wang Yu's moves were extremely accurate, and the players at the periphery were stabbed in the lower bodies. Then, they lowered their heads to reveal their vitals, and Wang Yu slit their throats. Chapter 854. The biggest advantage of having multiple layers of encirclement was that they could fill in the gaps when their teammates died. Wang Yu's Circle the Pillar was able to kill almost 10 people with a single Circle the Pillar. Only Martial Valor's players continued to advance, and after a few rounds, only the outermost layer of melee players remained. The players in the inner circle were luckier. With their backs to Wang Yu, they couldn't see their companions' miserable state. They could only listen to their screams, which felt weird. Moreover, even if they were stabbed in the sphincter by Wang Yu's short sword, they wouldn't have to lower their heads and expose their neck. In the game, the buttocks weren't considered a vital point. Wang Yu had almost killed all the melee players in the outer circle, but the players in the inner circle were still holding their buttocks and waiting for an opportunity. At the same time, Martial Universe also realized that he couldn't keep fighting like this. If he kept fighting like this, he would be completely led by the nose by Wang Yu. Sooner or later, they would all be killed by Wang Yu alone. More than 100 people were killed by a single person. This kind of one-sided battle result wasn't just a 10% loss of experience. Anyone who cared about their reputation wouldn't let this happen. If they were killed by their own people, they might be able to defend themselves, but if they were killed by Wang Yu alone, they would be tarnished for the rest of their lives. Don't worry about the people inside. Blast them! Martial Universe shouted, decisively ordering the ranged players in the outer circle to kill their own people as well. The ranged players couldn't help but watch as their companions were slaughtered. Their faces had long since turned red from holding back. When they heard Martial Universe's shout, their fighting spirit burst forth with 120%. Magic arrows rained down on the encirclement as if they were free. Under the disdain of Yu Huiqing's players, Wang Yu and Invincible's melee players were engulfed by endless magic. The magic arrows fell for nearly 10 seconds. It wasn't until they could no longer see a single figure in the light of the magic that Martial Universe ordered them to stop. He's dead this time, right? Looking at the empty encirclement, Wu Dongqian Kuan still had some lingering fear in his heart. The archers and mages of Wu Dongqian Kuan, on the other hand, targeted the Grandmaster of Combat's resurrection point. They planned to send Wang Yu back the moment he exited the resurrection point. However, at this moment, a familiar nightmarish voice rang out behind Wu Dongqian Kuan. "So you're hiding at the back. I've been looking for you for so long. You're not dead?" Turning his head, Wudong Qiankuan saw Wang Yu standing behind him like an iron tower. Seeing that Wang Yu wasn't dead, Wudong Qiankuan's soul almost left his body. Turning around, he tried to retreat. Wang Yu already knew that Wudong Qiankuan was going to use this move. Before Wudong Qiankuan could escape, Wang Yu pulled Wudong Qiankuan back with his left hand with Tiger Strike. Then, he grabbed Wudong Qiankuan's neck by the throat and pressed a chi wave the size of a washbasin into Wudong Qiankuan's face. Wudong Qiankuan was instantly reduced to a puff of white light. Humph, a country bumpkin who hasn't even seen blink before. Wang Yu spat disdainfully in the direction that Wudong Qiankuan had disappeared to. At the same time, hearing the commotion behind them, Invincible and the other ranged players who were aiming at the Grandmaster of Combat's resurrection point also turned around. "Hi, how are you? Goodbye." Wang Yu waved at the crowd and turned to run. However, as soon as he turned around, he saw that the melee players he had killed had already resurrected and returned to the street. Wang Yu turned around and tried to go the other way. The group of players who had surrounded Wang Yu from the alley had also arrived at the battlefield. Once again, Wang Yu was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. This time, the number of enemies was several times greater than before. Looking at the countless enemies around him, Wang Yu silently pulled out a red scarf and hung it around his neck. "Motherf *Ker, you're still not dead this time?" Wudong Qiankuan once again appeared from the resurrection point. "You can count yourself lucky if you can beat 100 people by yourself. There are almost 800 people here now. If you can still beat them all, I'll quit the game right now." While thinking this, Wudong Qiankuan proudly commanded his players, "Slaughter." Before Wudong Qiankuan could finish his pretentious words, he suddenly heard a loud shout, "Flash Shadow Chain Kick." Immediately after, To Place One's Pride jumped out from the resurrection point. Flash Shadow Chain Kick was To Place One's Pride's ultimate skill. It was also known as the End of Generations kick. At this stage of the game, this kick could instantly kill anyone. Before Wudong Qiankuan could even see To Place One's Pride's face clearly, To Place One's Pride's big foot landed on the bridge of his nose. The poor Wudong Qiankuan was once again sacrificed in his daze. A pair of pants fell to the ground. "Haha, he dropped an equipment. Look at my luck." At this moment, To Place One's Pride, who had killed Wudong Qiankuan, reached over and picked up Wudong Qiankuan's pants. Not only did this brat pick up the equipment to look at its attributes, he even put it in front of his nose to smell it. To Place One's Pride's actions made Wang Yu feel disgusted. This was Wudong Qiankuan's pants. To Place One's Pride did not care about that. Seeing that the attributes of the pants were better than his and that there was no smell, he immediately put them on. Damn, I forgot that he had a helper. Wang Yu's bravery had caused the players of To Place One's Pride to think that he was their only enemy. To Place One's Pride's sudden appearance immediately made them realize that their opponent was not fighting alone. It was obviously too late for them to react now. To Place One's Pride had killed Wudong Qiankuan. Yin Lao Er had already activated collision and charged into the crowd at the resurrection point's entrance. Almost at the same time, Bao San's whirlwind slash and Mingdu's magic whistled through the air. Most of the ranged classes like to place one's pride were killed in this wave of attack. Just as these people thought that they were lucky enough to escape this calamity, Mingjian Daoxue and Baiming Yoyu flashed their blades behind them. Coordinating with Yang Na and Linglong Dream's arrows, they carved out a path of blood. When the other players of To Place One's Pride saw this, they immediately charged forward and launched a counterattack against Quan Zhen's group. Hurry to the resurrection point. At the resurrection point, Wuji saw that the other party had begun their counterattack and roared at Wang Yu's group. When the Chuanjian players heard Wuji's reminder, they did not linger and scrambled into the resurrection point for the Grandmaster of Combat. Seeing that Wang Yu's group had escaped into the safe zone, the players of To Place One's Pride, who had suffered a loss, had nowhere to vent their anger and started cursing. Yu Huiqing's players all expressed that they had never seen such a dirty street in all their years of playing the game. After being cursed by so many people, Quan Zhen's group, who had a different way of thinking compared to normal people, did not get angry at all. Instead, they looked smug as if they were asking for a scolding. This made Wang Yu extremely surprised. Mingdu even showed off to place one's pride. See that? There are more people cursing me than you. Wang Yu was dumbfounded. He really did not know what was there to be proud of. You're comparing yourself to Uncle Nyo. To Place One's Pride also had a childish temper. Sigh, it's my loss. After listening attentively for a while, Mingdu bowed to Wang Yu. Chapter 855. After a moment of confusion, Wang Yu turned around and asked Wuji, "Weren't you guys at the resurrection point? Why did you guys appear here?" Wuji pursed his lips and said unhappily, "There's no one at the entrance of the resurrection point. All of us added up aren't as important as you, God Ox." Yu Huiqing's 7 resurrection points were on the same street. The moment Wang Yu appeared, the players from the 7 resurrection points all ran out to capture Wang Yu. The Chuanjian members at the resurrection points were ignored. While Wang Yu was busy fighting with them, the few of them sneaked out from the crowd. Everyone had indeed escaped safely, but the feeling of being looked down upon was indeed a little heart-wrenching. Furthermore, it was the Chuanjian members who would compare themselves to others even when they were scolded. Hee. Is that so? I thought you guys weren't going to help me and was prepared to escape. It's all thanks to you guys, hee. Wang Yu chuckled. Wang Yu wasn't an insensible person. Although Wang Yu had said that he didn't need the help of others, if it weren't for the appearance of the Chuanjian members at the critical moment, Wang Yu would have been in a much more pathetic state even if he could have escaped unscathed. Wang Yu couldn't do something like blaming his teammates because of his own words in a moment of anger. TSK, only you guys practice martial arts with dignity. We have dignity too. If Wang Yu hadn't mentioned it, everyone might have forgotten about it. Now that Wang Yu mentioned it, everyone looked down on Wang Yu. What the heck was he saying? Everyone was killed. How could he not take revenge? Haha, I didn't mean it that way. Wang Yu hurriedly laughed it off and apologized. Humph. Trash. Everyone gave Wang Yu the middle finger in unison. Wang Yu ignored everyone's disdain and asked Wuji seriously, "How do we get out like this?" Right now, outside the Grandmaster of Combat's resurrection point, only martial supremacy's people were already packed. Rather than saying that the Quan Zhen Sect's people had fought their way out of the encirclement, it was more accurate to say that they had been forced into a dead end. Of the 7 main classes' resurrection points, only the Priest and Grandmaster of Combat resurrection points had roof. Even Chuanjian's players who knew how to run on roofs had to get out of the resurrection point first. Hundreds of archers outside the resurrection point were aiming at the door of the Grandmaster of Combat dojo. If Chuanjian's people dared to walk on roofs in front of them, they would dare to shoot Chuanjian into a porcupine. Therefore, the situation wasn't optimistic. Chuanjian's people were completely blocked at the resurrection point. They had to have the ability to fight their way out if they wanted to. However, in order to hunt down Chuanjian's people, Invincible had brought more than 1,000 people, and every single one of them was an elite player. Putting aside the fact that Chuanjin's people could not withstand more than a few waves of attacks, even if Chuanjin's people had the ability to devour 1,000 people with just 10 of them, the resurrection point was nearby. If that was the case, Invincible's players would definitely have an endless supply. No matter how powerful Chuanjin's people were, they could not be unreasonable. Wuji thought for a moment and said, "They have enough troops now and aren't afraid of exhaustion. If we want to break out, we need stronger people to help us. Should we?" After hearing Wuji's words, everyone looked at Wang Yu. Wuji's words were not without reason. If they wanted to truly escape, they needed an organization strong enough to block Invincible's 1,000 people at the resurrection point to deal with Invincible. To move unhindered among all the major guilds in Rebirth, only evildoers run wild had the ability and courage to do so. We don't need to trouble others with our own matters. Wuji shook his head and said, "Let's wait a little longer. Reinforcements will be here soon." Ah! As soon as Wuji finished speaking, an arrogant laughter came from the side. "You think you can get out? Let me tell you, if you don't hand over your equipment, don't ever leave this resurrection point again." Everyone looked toward the source of the voice and saw a burly man standing there with his hands on his hips, wearing only his underwear. The hairs on his snow-white thighs swayed in the wind, and his face was filled with malevolence. Who else could it be but Invincible Universe? Invincible Universe's laughter was very arrogant, and his attitude was very unyielding. However, Invincible Universe's current image was like that of a crazy man on a bus. Such arrogant words coming out of his mouth were mostly a joke. There were players who had just logged in at the resurrection point who did not know who Invincible Universe was. When they saw his behavior, they could not help but look at him strangely. Wang Yu and the others were all adults, so they naturally would not lower themselves to the level of a naked man. To place one's pride, on the other hand, was better at infuriating people. He pointed at Invincible Universe and shouted, "F***CK, running naked in broad daylight? Who gave you the courage to do that?" To place one's pride even pointed at his pants. Invincible Universe did not know that his pants were gone. When he heard To Place One's Pride shout, he immediately lowered his head. At that moment, he saw his bare thighs and immediately blushed in embarrassment. Following To Place One's Pride's finger, Invincible Universe saw his own equipment on To Place One's Pride's body. His expression turned even uglier, and he angrily pointed at the Chuanjin members and shouted, "You bunch of bastards, even if you return your equipment, I won't let you off so easily." "Oh, with just these few people?" Wuji raised his eyebrows and asked in disdain. "Humph." Invincible Universe snorted coldly. "There aren't many of us, but it's more than enough to stop you." "Is that so? Look outside." Wuji chuckled and pointed outside the door. Invincible Universe stretched his head out and looked outside. He saw that the street outside the resurrection point was packed with people. It was a black mass, and he did not know how many people there were. These are your people?" Seeing the crowd on the street, Invincible Universe's eyeballs almost popped out of their socket. In his information, there were less than 20 people in Chuanjin. How did they suddenly have so many helpers? Wuji laughed and said, "They're from our city." Of course, the people on the street were not from Chuanjin. They were players from various guilds in Yuhuiqing. It was not only Yuhuiqing. Any player in a main city would have a special collective sense of honor. Since the system had assigned these people to the same main city, it was fate. Everyone would have conflicts and fight each other, but that was ultimately a family matter. In the face of the main city's honor, everyone was bound together. Once an enemy came to invade, everyone would definitely unite against them. Currently, there were tens of thousands of Yuhuiqing players on the street. Although Blood Red War Flag did not show up because of Invincible Universe, Wang Yu saw Blood Red War Flag greeting him. This touched Wang Yu's heart. Seeing the tens of thousands of players on the street, Invincible Universe's players broke out in a cold sweat. One by one, they rushed into the resurrection point. It could not be helped. In the face of absolute numbers, any strategy or skill was useless. With so many people, one skill per person was enough to wipe out everything. How is it? Do you still think you're so great? Wuji asked Invincible Universe coldly. Chapter 856. Faced with Wuji's mockery, Universe Domination's expression darkened. He didn't know how to respond. As the boss of a major guild, Martial Universe was naturally aware of what was going on outside. When Universe Domination first brought his people to Yu Huiqing, he was already on guard and tried his best to avoid alarming Yu Huiqing's players. However, Wang Yu's bravery still alerted Yu Huiqing's players in the end. Only Martial Supremacy was a large guild with tens of thousands of players. If he mobilized everyone in the guild, they might be able to defeat a mob of tens of thousands. However, if he did so, he would thoroughly anger Yu Huiqing's players. At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as tens of thousands of players. One had to know that Yu Huiqing had close to 200,000 players. Even if half of them came, it would be enough to annihilate only Martial Supremacy several times over. Some people wanted to ask, wouldn't Universe Domination call for Ares City's players to help? What a joke. Players weren't united against outsiders because of a certain guild, but because they wanted to protect their city and their own dignity. It was an honorable act. Once they left their own city and attacked another city, the nature of the players would change. They would become invaders. Invaders didn't have any damn dignity. Players were all smart. If there were no benefits, no one would help only Martial Supremacy. Mobilizing hundreds of thousands of players. Even if it cost 10 gold per person, the military expenditure would be enough for Universe Domination to buy hundreds of sets of dark gold-grade equipment. At the end of the day, Wu Dongqian was a reputable figure. Even if he was defeated, he couldn't embarrass himself in front of so many of his underlings. So what if they have more people? Do you think they can protect you every day? Universe Domination said. Well said. Wuji clapped his hands and praised Wu Dongqian. He then pointed at Wang Yu and said to Wu Dongqian, I believe you've seen this master's abilities. Do you believe that he can kill you whenever he wants? When Wudong Universe saw Wang Yu staring at him with a face full of killing intent, he could not help but tremble. Towards Wang Yu, Wu Dongqian was truly afraid. Wudong Qiankuan had personally experienced the battle just now. Wang Yu had easily killed him despite being surrounded by more than 100 people. Wuji's words were not exaggerated. Moreover, from Wang Yu's expression, he should be very interested in hunting down Wudong Qiankuan. Being targeted by such a ruthless person, let alone Universe Martial, anyone would feel uneasy. Even if Universe Martial was the guild leader of a major guild, he couldn't possibly be protected by hundreds of players every day. Then what do you want? Wu Dong Universe asked Wuji with lingering fear in his heart. Very simple. Wuji narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, everyone knows that our Chuanjin is the most reasonable. As long as you admit defeat, we will definitely not make things difficult for you. What the F***ck? Talk reason? Isn't this son of AB***tch afraid of divine retribution for saying such words? Hearing Wuji's words, Universe Domination and his subordinates looked at Wuji in shock. They found it hard to believe that a person who could snatch someone's equipment could be reasonable. Universe Domination sneered, just admit defeat? So simple? Universe Domination was a wily old fox. He had fought his way to the top in Battle God City. There was no way he wouldn't know what would happen after the battle. Wuji smiled and said, Of course not. I only said that I won't make things difficult for you. I didn't say that I'll just let it go. Wuji was very shrewd. He led Universe Domination into a trap step by step. When Universe Domination said that, it was obvious that he didn't want to fight anymore. Since his opponent was afraid, Wuji's next step was naturally to negotiate terms. I knew it. Wudong Universe glanced sideways at Wuji, his eyes filled with disdain. As the guild leader of a big guild, he still had this bit of aura. Moreover, Wudong Universe was afraid of Wang Yu, not Wuji. Universe Domination's disdain had no effect on a shameless person like Wuji. Wuji ignored it and said, "Since you guys don't want to buy those equipment, we won't sell them. I won't hold it against you guys for cheating our feelings. How about it? I'm reasonable, right?" Universe Domination was still looking at him coldly. "But you killed all of us. You have to give us an explanation. Otherwise, my brothers won't be happy." Wuji pointed at Mingdu and the others. Mingdu nodded furiously. "Not bad, not bad. Just give me 10,000 gold for each kill. I'm a person who's content." "Wow, you're really worthless. I'm so young, at least 50,000 gold." To place one's pride, he expressed that he was not the same type of person as Mingdu, who was only worth 10,000. Chun Xiang and the others also joined in the fun. "I'm mature and steady, I'll get 100,000. I'm young and pretty, I'll get 200,000. Hey, old witch, you're shameless. Die." In just a short while, these people's lives shot up to 1 million gold per kill. Seeing these people getting more and more ridiculous, Universe Domination's face darkened. In the end, he couldn't help but say, "Can you guys be more serious? I'm asking you guys with a serious attitude. 1 million is indeed too much. Stop messing around." Wuji turned his head and reprimanded the Chuanjin people. Then, he turned back to Wu Dong Qiankuan and said, 10,000 for one time. I think it's quite reasonable. There are 9 of us. Including the psychological damage, you'll have to pay 100,000 gold. F***CK. Why don't you guys go rob someone? Seeing that Wuji finally set the price at 100,000 gold, Universe Domination was immediately enraged. Damn it, a piece of dark gold equipment was only worth 10,000 gold. What right did these scum have to ask for 10,000 gold for each death? Wuji said, "Universe boss, you're saying that again. We Chuanjin are reasonable people. Why would we do something like that? Besides, robbing someone might not be as fast as this." Shameless. Universe Domination was trembling with anger. He pointed at Wuji and said, "I'm going to fight you today. Kill me at the revival point if you can." As he said that, Universe Domination pointed at Wang Yu and looked at Wang Yu provocatively. It was obvious that Universe Domination was also a troublemaker. Did he really think that Wang Yu couldn't do anything to him in the safe zone? Looking at the fearless Universe Domination, Wang Yu walked out of the revival point without saying a word. He looked around, then greeted the 2 guards not far away from the revival point. "Lord Warrior, what are your orders?" The 2 guards walked to Wang Yu's side and asked with a salute. Wang Yu pointed at Wu Dong Universe and said, "Get him out for me. We're at your service." The 2 guards Kwacha saluted Wang Yu, before striding to Wu Dong Qiankuan's side. Each of them grabbed one of Wu Dong Qiankuan's arms, and under the watchful eyes of the crowd, they carried Wu Dong Qiankuan out of the revival point. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. The people from martial supremacy were shocked. Just who was Wang Yu to be able to command the main city guards? The players from Afterglow City were astonished. Who the hell was this? In broad daylight, he wasn't even wearing pants. Chapter 857. What is this? Wu Dong Qiankuan, who was being held by the guards, was dumbfounded when he saw the tens of thousands of players staring at his lower body. No matter how hard he thought, he would never have imagined that he would be dragged out of the resurrection point, much less in such a state. Wu Dong Qiankuan was also an influential figure of his generation. Everyone in the Battle God City knew about him. Right now, under the watchful eyes of so many people, he wasn't even wearing a pair of pants, making it seem like he was caught red-handed. One could imagine how awkward the situation was. Right now, Wu Dongqian Kun wanted nothing more than to die. But now, he was being held by 2 guards. It would be hard for him to die even if he wanted to. The most painful thing in life wasn't death, but not being able to die even if you wanted to. The players from Wu Dongqian Kun couldn't bear to watch. They held back their laughter and hid in the resurrection point, afraid that they would be recognized as Wu Dongqian Kun's underlings. Just as Wu Dongqian Kun was about to die, Wuji caught up with him and whispered into Wu Dongqian Kun's ear, "Relax, they don't know you." "Is that so?" Wu Dongqian Kun's heart shook. He raised his head and noticed the confusion on everyone's faces. He was glad that they didn't know him. It was fine as long as they didn't know him. There were so many players in the game, and there were countless people with similar figures. But Wuji's next sentence made Wu Dongqian Kun spit out a mouthful of blood. Wuji said sinisterly, "They don't know who you are, but I can tell them. Bastard! You will die a horrible death." Wu Dongqian Kun glared at Wuji angrily, his eyes spitting fire. He wanted nothing more than to slap Wuji to death. Unfortunately, Wu Dongqian Kun couldn't even kill himself, let alone others. He could only struggle to show how strong the guards were. Wuji saw that Wu Dongqian Kun was still so arrogant, so he turned to Wang Yu and asked, "Old cow, didn't you say you wanted to settle it yourself? What will you do in this situation?" Wang Yu thought for a moment, then pointed to the roof of the church. "How about I strip him naked and hang him on the roof? It's so high up there. Everyone will be able to see him." F***ck When Wu Dongqian Kun heard Wang Yu's words, tears flowed out. Wuji was ruthless, but Wang Yu was not only ruthless, he was also ruthless. What kind of people were they? Not bad. Wuji rubbed his chin and said, "When the time comes, it will be considered as a tourism industry in Yuhuiqing that will greatly promote the economic development. The few of us will be responsible for explaining the scenery here, and I reckon that we will be able to earn quite a lot of tour guide fees." As he spoke, Wuji winked at Wang Yu. As expected of Wuji. "If they had done this earlier, we would have been rich a long time ago. It's settled then. Let Dao Shui take a video and post it on the main forum." As Wang Yu spoke, he reached out to take the universe of martial arts from the guard and was about to climb onto the roof. Hearing the two of them echoing each other, Wu Dongqian Kun's face turned pale with fright. No matter what, Wu Dongqian Kun was an overlord. He came all the way here to cause trouble, but in the end, he was hung naked in public. If word of this got out, how was he supposed to live? Forget about Wu Dongqian Kun himself. If word of this got out, the entire only martial supremacy would probably be implicated. After all, the big guilds cared more about fame and reputation. Having a boss who hung someone up in public and a boss who was hung up in public felt different. Only martial supremacy and the others dared not step forward to stop him. Looking at Wang Yu, who was about to get serious with the universe of martial arts, their faces were filled with sympathy for Wu Dongqian Kun. As the saying goes, compared to being laughed at by everyone, the most miserable thing is to have everyone sympathize with you. This time, Wu Dongqian Kun was truly convinced. He cried out in fear and trepidation, "I was wrong, I was wrong. 2 bosses, what do you want?" Wuji smiled faintly. "If you know you're wrong, then change for the better. We Chuanjin have always been reasonable. Like I said, there's nothing that money can't solve. You just need to pay 80,000 gold. Okay, I'll pay, alright." Wu Dongqian Kun agreed while pointing at the resurrection point. "Can we talk inside?" Wu Dongqian Kun didn't even have his pants on. Being stared at by so many people made him feel a chill in his heart. "Okay." Wang Yu nodded. Wang Yu let go of Wu Dongqian Kun and tossed him to the ground. Wu Dongqian Kun scrambled into the resurrection point. After hiding in the resurrection point, Wu Dongqian Kun calmed himself down and asked, "Boss Wuji, Boss Iron Ox, just give me a quick answer. If you include my, oh no, your dark gold equipment, how much would it cost? Hee. Seeing that Wu Dongqian Kuan was still reluctant to part with the equipment, Wang Yu and Wu Ji both smiled knowingly. At this time, famous Sword Snow walked over and said, "We have a total of 40 pieces of equipment. According to the price of 10,000 gold per piece, that's a total of 400,000 gold. According to the current exchange rate between gold and RMB, that's a total of 24 million before taxes. Boss Qian Kuan, do you want to transfer RMB or gold?" "Gold. Gold," Wu Dongqian Kuan hurriedly said. Right now, there were hundreds of millions of players in the game. The production of gold was an astronomical figure every day, so the exchange rate between gold and RMB was constantly falling. 400,000 gold was not a large amount for Wu Dongqian Kuan. If it could be settled with gold, no one would use RMB. One had to know that Wu Dongqian Kuan also had a boss behind the scenes. This matter was to clean up Lucifer's mess, so it could not be made public. Gold was a virtual currency, and Wu Dongqian Kuan would have to report it to the higher-ups if he used RMB. Wouldn't that be exposed? Gold is fine too. Chuanzhen's people were not picky. They were all gamers. Even the current Wang Yu did not rely on the game to make money. There was no difference between gold and RMB. All right, with the 100,000 we agreed on at the beginning, it's a total of 500,000. I'll write a contract for you now, Wu Dongqian Kuan said. This kind of large transaction had exceeded the limit of gold, so a contract was needed. 500,000? No, that's just the equipment and compensation for killing us. We still have other things to discuss. Wu Ji waved his hand. What else? Wu Dongqian Kuan asked in surprise. Did you know that the reward for winning the qualifier was stolen by the system because of your guild's Lucifer? Wu Ji calmly said to Wu Dongqian Kuan. There's such a thing? Wu Dongqian Kuan was not stupid. He knew that Wu Ji was going to ask for an exorbitant price again. However, he was already a fish on the chopping block. He could only grit his teeth and curse Lucifer 100 times in his heart. How could this brat be so good at stirring up trouble? Just how many bad things did he do to deserve this? Chapter 858. The system announced it. All the players in the country can vouch for it. Wu Ji said, that's the champion's reward. There should be at least a few pieces of epic equipment. Epic. Martial Universe's face darkened. This bastard really dared to say such a thing. Most of the major guilds wouldn't even bother to participate in a grassroots competition. Dark gold equipment was already good enough as a reward, let alone epic equipment. Wasn't this bullshit a little too much? Why don't you say it's a godly equipment? Legendary weapon couldn't take it anymore and retorted. Yeah. Wu Ji rubbed his chin and nodded. He then said to Legendary Weapon, you're right. It's very likely to be a godly equipment. Legendary Weapon was completely dumbfounded. Bro, I was just making it up. Can you pretend I didn't say anything? Me too. Wu Ji laughed. F***ck. The divine weapon was infuriated. Let's not discuss the epic equipment's price. After all, I haven't even seen the rewards yet, right? Look at all the brothers that have come to help. We need to give them an explanation as well. In total, you'll have to pay 200,000 gold. What do you think? Wu Ji asked Martial Universe. F***ck. Martial Universe's knuckles cracked. He wanted to throw caution to the wind and embarrass himself. He didn't want to pay. Seeing Wu Dong Universe's expression, Wu Ji continued in a low voice. It's just 200,000 gold. It's nothing much to your guild. If something happens, the impact on your guild will definitely exceed this price. Wu Ji's blade could be said to have pierced Wu Dong Qiankuan's heart. The guild's boss being stripped naked in public was a huge insult to the guild. No matter how powerful Absolute was, The guild members wouldn't be able to take it if word of this got out. A large guild's income didn't just come from the competition. It also came from the shares of the financial group behind it. If all the guild members ran away, it would be a huge blow to the boss behind the scenes, especially since the Pro League was about to begin. So what if the only martial artist could win? The fact that boss was humiliated by others was something that could never be erased. It hadn't been easy for Martial Universe to climb to this point. If something really did happen, he wouldn't just lose his job. In any case, coins were the blood and flesh of the guild members. Martial Universe knew which was more important, himself or his subordinate. Sigh. After being threatened by Wuji, Wu Dong Qian Kuan, who was about to explode in anger, lowered his head and asked dejectedly, 200,000 gold. Can I get a discount? Wuji's price had skyrocketed too quickly. No matter how rich only Martial Sovereign was, he still had to be thrifty with his spending. You'll have to ask my wife, Wuji said. Oh? Which of these two is sister-in-law? Wu Dong Universe looked at Yang Na and Exquisite Dream in surprise. Bah, shameless! The two girls spat at Wu Dong Qian Kuan and turned their heads away. When did you get a wife? Wang Yu asked in surprise. I don't have a wife, Wuji said. Then tell me. It means there's no room for discussion, Wuji spread his hands. Wu Dong Qian Kuan. How about it? Is the price suitable? Wuji asked Wu Dong Qian Kuan. Can I say no? No. It's suitable. Wu Dong Qian Kuan nodded decisively. Wu Dong Qian Kuan could see that the most despicable person in the Quan Zhen sect was Wuji. No matter how vicious Wang Yu was, he was only killing people. Wuji, on the other hand, was risking his life for blood. He was simply unreasonable. With the conditions agreed, Wu Dong Qian Kuan quickly wrote a contract for 700,000 gold. Since it was a virtual transaction, it was tax-free. After accepting the contract, Wang Yu traded the equipment to Wu Dong Qian Kuan. Wuji walked to the resurrection point and shouted at the crowd, Brothers, I'm sorry. We were just joking. Everyone, please leave. Thank you for this time. If you need anything from Chuanjin in the future, just say the word. Outside the resurrection point, the tens of thousands of players in Yuhuiqing heard this and didn't complain. They left the central street in an orderly manner. Seeing that all the players outside the resurrection point had left, Wu Dong Qian Kuan was like a defeated rooster. He walked out of the resurrection point dejectedly and disappeared into the streets with his thousands of subordinate. This time, Wu Dong Qian Kuan was probably traumatized. He definitely wouldn't dare to come to Yuhuiqing for a period of time. Only Wu Dong Qian Kuan was called a scoundrel in Aries City. Wu Dong Qian Kuan was already a little smug. However, after seeing the ruthless demon Chuanjin, he knew that he still had a long way to go. 700,000. Almost 70,000 per person. We're rich. F***CK. After Wu Dong Qian Kuan left, the Chuanjin people immediately surrounded Wang Yu. 700,000 gold. To a large guild with tens of thousands of people, each person wouldn't even get 100 gold coins. However, to a small group of a dozen or so people, it was definitely a huge sum of money. This was the first time Chuanjin had seen so much money after robbing Xiaobing's workshop. What's 700,000? Dream on. There are still people waiting to get their share. Wuji glared at the crowd and chased them away. Then, he stood on the spot and seemed to be sending a message. A few seconds later, Wuji finished sending the message and said to the Chuanjin people, Let's go to the tavern. The group left the resurrection point in a grandiose manner and arrived at the tavern. Just as they entered the tavern, Wang Yu heard someone calling out, Godnyo, Boss Wuji, over here, over here. Everyone looked over and saw 8 or 9 people sitting at the big table in the middle of the tavern. They were all familiar faces. There was Blood Red War Flag, 2012, and even the boss of Finger Heaven, Captain Don't Shoot. Why are they here? Wang Yu asked in confusion. The other Chuanjian people were also confused. Among these people, only blood-red war flag could be considered an old friend. They were not familiar with the others, especially Captain Don't Shoot. They used to be enemies. Hee. Wu Ji said, do you think that with your reputation, so many people will support you in such a short period of time? Wang Yu was slightly stunned. Could it be their people? Most of them. Wu Ji smiled and walked to the table. He said to the bosses, thank you for your information and support this time. This 200,000 is the compensation for Invincible. It's a small token of appreciation. Please accept it. Not at all, not at all. We are mutually benefiting each other. Even if we were to use force to cause trouble, we would still be doomed. God Iron Bull is really something. The various guild leaders took the money humbly while looking at Wang Yu with complicated expressions. Hearing the conversation between Wu Ji and these people, the Chuanjian people finally understood. It turned out that this was all part of Wu Ji's plan. Wu Ji had received the news from the beginning. That was why he urged Wang Yu to come and sell his equipment. Then, he brought the Chuanjian people to make a big deal out of this. The people from the big guilds pretended to be Yu Huiqing's players to surround Invincible Universe. Previously, Invincible Universe had already communicated with the big guild. The reason why he did this was to find an excuse to surround them. No one would dislike money that was delivered to their doorstep. P.S. This old man is familiar with the Three Kingdoms and has some understanding of Zhao Yun's appearance. Zhao Yun has a square face, a double chin, thick eyebrows, and is extremely muscular. He likes to wear white clothes. Chapter 859. However, what Wu Ji didn't expect was that Wang Yu could single-handedly kill over 100 of Martial Supremacy's players. This was also the reason why the big bosses looked at Wang Yu in horror. What did it mean to fight 100 people alone? Currently, a guild only had 500 people. Wang Yu alone could take on at least a quarter of the guild. If this guy wanted to kill someone, that person might as well just give up the game. Seeing such a ruthless person like Wang Yu, everyone was glad that they didn't become enemies with Chuanjian. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. Wang Yu could still understand Wu Ji's strategy, but there was one thing that he couldn't understand. Why didn't they just come up and surround Martial Supremacy? Did they have to go around in such a big circle? Wang Yu asked in confusion. Idiot! Wu Ji smiled and said, then wouldn't everyone be exposed? Martial Supremacy's influence is still very strong. Everyone can't stay in Yu Huiqing forever. There's an old saying in our country, make a fortune in silence. Do you understand? I see. Wang Yu understood. Scamming people and not letting them know who scammed them. Such a despicable method was indeed Wu Ji's style. Moreover, everyone was making money together. It was mutually beneficial and it could also help improve the relationship between the guild. Killing two birds with one stone, why not? One had to know that apart from the equipment, Martial Supremacy had lost a total of 300,000. Chuanjian only sent out 10 people and took 1/3 of it. It was definitely the biggest profit. The other guilds sent out a lot of people, but there were no casualties. They just strolled around the street. To be able to take this amount was no different from picking it up for free. Only Wu Ji could make everyone happy in business. As for how the other guilds divided the 200,000, it was none of Chuanjian's business. After throwing the money to everyone, Wu Ji was about to get up and leave with everyone. Suddenly, the captain stopped firing and stood up. Boss Wu Ji, Guru Iron Ox, don't be in a hurry to leave. The captain said. Oh? What's wrong? Wu Ji turned his head and asked the captain not to shoot. Chuanjian and Finger at the Sky had a small conflict a while ago. To be honest, Wu Ji did not have a good impression of Captain Don't Shoot. If Captain Don't Shoot was not in a hurry to join the operation, Wu Ji would not have called him over. Well, you don't have to take my share of the money, the captain said without shooting. Oh, as expected of a tycoon. How heroic. Wu Ji gave him a thumbs up and praised indifferently. There were a total of 8 guilds participating in this operation. The 200,000 gold coins would be divided into 8 portions, and each guild would receive a considerable amount of money. The party leader didn't just say no. This kind of heroism wasn't something an ordinary person could display. But I have a request. The captain didn't shoot. Okay, go ahead. Wu Ji knew it wouldn't be that simple. Captain Don't Shoot was smart. Money was indeed nothing to him. To be able to request for Chuanjin, this matter was much more difficult than earning money. Seeing Wu Ji agree so readily, the team leader, Don't Shoot, said happily, "Can the Chuanjin sect do us a favor? Murder, arson, or swindle?" Wang Yu came over and asked. "None of those." The captain shook his head. "Then why are you looking for us?" Wang Yu's expression was puzzled. The captain didn't shoot. Don't listen to his nonsense. Wu Ji hurriedly said, "What do you want?" "Dungeon," the captain said without shooting. "Dungeon?" Wu Ji was puzzled. "You have your own professional team, why do you still need us?" Rebirth had been released for a long time. Everyone basically knew how to play the game. It wasn't as difficult as it was at the beginning. For example, some difficult dungeons could be passed as long as the players were strong enough. Sword in the Heavens had a professional team. If Chuanjin didn't have Wang Yu, these professional players would only be stronger than the people of Chuanjin. There was no need for them to spend money to hire outsiders. Could it be that there was a trap? Hee. The captain laughed bitterly. The professional league is about to start. It's inconvenient for them. No wonder. Wu Ji suddenly understood. Professional teams rarely participated in guild matters. Even when they leveled up, they would train together. As for the tedious matters such as killing bosses and getting equipment, other than necessary practice, the professional players usually wouldn't do anything. After all, they were professional experts hired with a high salary. Their annual salary was tens of millions. They didn't have the time to fight for resources with a group of low-end players. On the contrary, the purpose of a large guild's existence was to do their best to arm a group of experts. If these professional experts had to handle every single matter personally, then what was the point of spending so much money on nurturing thousands of useless trash? Especially now that it was a critical period. The professional experts were all working hard. Even if the captain was the boss, there was no reason for him to put down his work and come here to work overtime. A professional expert's annual salary was tens of millions. The overtime pay of 10 experts during a critical period was definitely more than 20,000 gold. Who said that the captain was stupid and had a lot of money? He was the smartest among the guild leaders. That captain boss. Wu Ji thought for a moment and pointed at Wang Yu. If your group of experts doesn't have time, we don't have time either. Look at our old cow. He goes around killing people every day. It's very tiring. Ah. The captain thought that Wu Ji was threatening him and his expression changed. Hee. Wu Ji laughed disdainfully at Wu Ji, who was full of lies. Seeing Wang Yu's eerie smile, Captain Don't Shoot, who had personally experienced Wang Yu's terror, was even more terrified. He said with a sobbing tone, "Bosses, if you don't want to help, then don't." "Don't scare me," Wu Ji comforted the captain. "I'm not scaring you. You saw it too. With Old Cow's ability, his appearance fee is definitely not low. Even if 3 to 5 of your professional experts attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for Old Cow." That's right, that's right." Captain Don't Shoot nodded his head repeatedly. Captain Don't Shoot could tell that although Wu Ji wasn't the strongest person in the Quanjin sect, he was definitely the most ruthless person in the sect. It seemed that trying to fool Wu Ji like how he fooled others wouldn't work. "You have to give me a suitable price for this appearance fee. Forget about the rest of us, we're used to being looked down upon, but you can't look down on our Old Cow. He's someone who would even kill his own people when he goes crazy," Wu Ji said with a smile. Wang Yu's face was full of black lines as he said to Wu Ji, "That's enough. If you talk nonsense again, I'll kill you." Chapter 860. Wu Ji waved his hand and said, "Chuanjin is not a person who only cares about money. Is your instance dungeon a quest dungeon?" It is a quest dungeon. You just need to clear it," Captain Don't Shoot said. "That's good," Wu Ji said with a smile. "We don't want money. We just want the income from the instance dungeon. How about that?" Since Captain Don't Shoot's instance dungeon was a quest dungeon, it must be a hidden instance that had not been cleared yet. The reward for a hidden instance dungeon was generous, not to mention a first kill. Any good item that dropped could be sold for a sum of money. It was definitely more cost-effective than the marked price. Hearing Wu Ji's words, Captain Don't Shoot had a troubled expression on his face. "Only the income? Why? If Boss Captain is not willing, then please leave," Wu Ji said lightly and was about to leave. Chuanjin never did a losing business. Since it was a seller's market now, Wu Ji would definitely talk about the conditions that needed to be talked about. After all, Chuanjin had just made a windfall. They would not lower their heads for a mere 20,000 gold. Captain Don't Shoot saw that Wu Ji got up and was about to leave. He quickly ran over and pulled Wu Ji back. No. Since Wu Ji requested it, then do as you wish. I don't mind." "That's right." Seeing that Captain Don't Shoot compromised, Wu Ji smiled. "It's settled then. Let's not delay. Let's go now." Captain Don't Shoot said, "Not yet. This instance dungeon only has one chance a week. We just failed once a few days ago. We have to do it tomorrow on Monday." "That's good. Let's do it tomorrow. Remember to inform us." After saying that, Wu Ji stood up and greeted everyone. Then, he led Chuanjin out of the tavern. As soon as they left the tavern, Wang Yu said to everyone, "You guys play first. I have to go offline." "Damn, it's only noon and you're going offline. Why don't you play more during the weekend? There's still a weekend event in the afternoon." Seeing that Wang Yu was not attending to his duties, the Chuanjin people expressed their dissatisfaction. The weekend was the time for the double EXP buff and various activities and quests. This kind of benefit was only available once a week. Normally, Wang Yu would play until 6 in the evening. Today, it was not even 12 o'clock. It was indeed a bit unkind of him to want to leave. Wang Yu smiled and said, "It's a bit personal." Activities. Everyone tried their best to persuade him to stay. Wang Yu waved his hand. "Those things don't mean much to me. You guys can take this opportunity to narrow the gap between us, even though you know it's useless." F***CK. Get lost. Everyone was furious when they heard that. They wished they could give Wang Yu the middle finger. Looking at the angry crowd, Wang Yu chuckled and went offline. When Wang Yu went offline, he saw Mu Zixian rolling up her sleeves and preparing lunch in the kitchen. He quietly walked over and patted Mu Zixian's shoulder. "Hey girl." After being patted by Wang Yu, Mu Zixian jumped in fright. She turned around and slashed the kitchen knife in her hand horizontally. Being able to retract and withdraw freely was an extremely difficult realm for a martial artist. Mu Zixian was even more unable to do it as an ordinary person. When Mu Zixian saw that it was Wang Yu behind her, the kitchen knife was less than 3 inches away from Wang Yu's arm. It was already too late for her to retract the knife. Fortunately, Wang Yu was not an ordinary person. He lightly leaned to the side and dodged Mu Zixian's kitchen knife. He also pulled Mu Zixian into his embrace. At the same time, he gave a light push. The kitchen knife in Mu Zixian's hand fell onto the chopping board with a thud. "Are you trying to scare me to death?" Mu Zixian was still in shock and fiercely stepped on Wang Yu's foot. Wang Yu also broke out in a cold sweat. It was fortunate that it was him just now. If it was someone else, that knife would have basically said goodbye to their right hand. "I was just joking. Why did you have such a big reaction?" Wang Yu chuckled. Nonsense. Look at your hoodlum tone. I thought there was a thief in the house. Mu Zixian used both hands to push Wang Yu out of the kitchen. This place is not for you to enter. Wait outside. That's true. I was just too happy. Wang Yu said excitedly. Wife, let's not cook today. Let's go out and eat. Oh? I heard that you guys made a fortune today? Mu Zixian had also just gone offline. She had heard about how Wang Yu and his group cheated only martial sovereign. We made a fortune, but that's just a small matter. There's something even more surprising. Wang Yu could not contain the excitement in his heart. Oh! Mu Zixian wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the kitchen door. She said with a straight face, You found a mistress? Wang Yu was speechless for a moment. He then said, What nonsense are you talking about? I just broke through. Broke through? So fast? Mu Zixian was stunned when she heard that. She said in surprise, Didn't you say it would take a few years? Wang Yu was not an ordinary martial artist. Wang Yu had already reached the Grandmaster realm at such a young age. It would not be easy for him to take another step forward. In the martial arts circle, there were many Grandmasters in fist technique. Although the leaders of the 4 aristocratic families were not as talented as Wang Yu, they were all geniuses. But without exception, all of them were stuck at this threshold. Just take Wang Yu's father, Wang Tianlong, for example. He had already reached the Grandmaster realm before the age of 30. Now that he was in his 50s, he still had not crossed this threshold. When Wang Yu said it would take a few years to break through, it was already a fast estimate. Now that he had successfully broken through in less than a few months, it was obviously a little unbelievable. Ha ha! Wang Yu laughed proudly. I have to thank the group of people from Invincible Martial Arts. Without them, I reckon it would be difficult for me to break through in a few years. Martial arts was originally a killing technique. Only through constant killing could one hone one's skills and break through to the highest realm. During this period of time, Wang Yu had been busy with the preliminaries. The quality of the opponents in the preliminaries was not very high, and the battles were at most small battles with 10 people from each side. Not to mention the group from Chuanjin, even if it was Wang Yu, it would be very easy for him to fight 10 people at once. Such battles were like a drop in the bucket for the experience that Wang Yu needed to feed his skills. However, today's battle with Invincible Martial Arts had greatly satisfied Wang Yu's combat needs. The people attacking Wang Yu were all elite experts. With more than 100 people besieging him, Wang Yu was forced into a desperate situation several times in a row. The potential of the human body was stimulated at times like this, and naturally, Wang Yu was no exception. Under the siege of Invincible Martial Arts, Wang Yu's potential was stimulated bit by bit, and in the end, his realm was finally stabilized. After that, Wang Yu experienced the deal between Wuji and the captain, Don't Shoot. Under the influence of Wuji's unscrupulous behavior to achieve his goals, he finally broke through the threshold that all boxing grandmasters could not cross. Do you think I've changed? Wang Yu asked Mu Zixian. Chapter 861. In the eyes of a couple, their other half was always stupid. Mu Zixian was not being objective when she said stupid. If it was Wuji and the others, they would definitely be able to see the change in Wang Yu. Kung Fu was a killing technique. Those who practiced martial arts would more or less have a ruthless aura. Today was a society governed by law. Those who fought fiercely would be sentenced to at least half a year in prison. Therefore, the more influential the family, the more they would pay attention to the cultivation of their mentality. As their martial arts became more profound, their ruthless aura would become more and more restrained. Wang Yu was only a 26-year-old young man after all. His mentality was not like those seniors. Although Wang Yu usually restrained his murderous aura, it was not perfect. It would occasionally show, and when he was agitated, it would be even more threatening. At this time, after the breakthrough, The murderous aura that Wang Yu occasionally showed was all restrained. The modesty, indifference, and fearlessness of a martial artist on Wang Yu was even more vivid. Looking at Mu Zixian's doting eyes, Wang Yu smiled happily. He put his arm around Mu Zixian's shoulder and said, "Let's go eat first. I still have to consolidate my realm later." After a breakthrough, consolidating one's realm was the most important step. The so-called consolidating realm was to exchange blows with experts and let the muscles and cells of the body remember the mysteries of this realm. However, in today's society there were almost no martial artists, and there were even fewer experts. Therefore, if a martial artist wanted to consolidate his realm, he had to rely on external forces. Using the method of training the muscles, let the body understand the new realm. No matter how realistic the holographic online game was, the body in reality could not be trained. This was also the reason why Wang Yu was in a hurry to go offline. For an expert of Wang Yu's realm, the breakthrough was a once-in-a-hundred-years event. If he missed this opportunity for double experience, with his intelligence, Wang Yu could forget about practicing martial arts. Consolidating realm? We haven't even settled the equipment in our house. In the past, Wang Yu did not know anything other than martial arts. Most of his conversations with Mu Zixian were about practicing martial arts. Over time, Mu Zixian could be considered half a martial arts encyclopedia. Of course, she understood the consolidation of realm that Wang Yu mentioned. However, with Wang Yu's family's current financial and material resources, it was simply not enough to support Wang Yu's consolidation of his realm. This was slightly embarrassing. Wang Yu smiled and took out a card from the drawer. "That's not a problem." "This." Mu Zixian saw the card in Wang Yu's hand and was slightly stunned. She suddenly said, "Isn't this the card that someone gave you?" "Li Jian." Wang Yu nodded and said, Li Jian was the young man who had gone on a blind date with Molly. Mu Zixian had even splashed tea all over his face. Luckily, Wang Yu was skilled, so he didn't pursue the matter. In the end, he even gave him a card. Now that she thought about it, Mu Zixian's face was still burning. Looks like I was lucky to have accepted this card last time. I heard that place is quite popular. Even if you have money, you won't be able to go there to spend money," Mu Zixian said in a joyful tone. "Madam Wang, you're the one with the foresight," Wang Yu flattered. "Haha, you aren't simple either. To be able to find such a far-sighted wife like me," Mu Zixian said with a smile. Wang Yu said shamelessly, "And the two of us aren't ordinary people. Go to hell." Mu Zixian smiled and pushed Wang Yu. Wang Yu had been to Li Jian's club before. It was only 2 stops away from Wang Yu's neighborhood. After eating, Wang Yu and Mu Zixian strolled to the entrance of the club. Li Jian's club was called Tianyuan Sports Center. It was the largest indoor fitness club in L City. Not only did it have basic facilities like a gym and swimming pool, but it also had a shooting range, indoor racetrack, and other large training bases. It was one of L City's iconic buildings. Li Jian had such a family business at such a young age. It was no wonder that his underling had bragged about his so-called family background. Looking at him now, he really wasn't bragging. What puzzled Wang Yu and Mu Zixian was how a girl like Molly could have such a high-class blind date. Even though there was freedom in love nowadays, it was still very important to find a suitable match. Especially for a person like Li Jian, he wouldn't find a small gold collector for no reason. Of course, although he was puzzled, Wang Yu wasn't as gossipy as Mu Zixian. He knew that everyone had their own secrets, and he wouldn't ask what he shouldn't ask. Now that Molly and Wang Yu didn't lack money, they would move out sooner or later. They were just tenants, and they weren't close enough to talk about everything. There was a saying that a big shop bullied its customers. This saying was definitely true. Just as Mu Zixian said, Li Jian's club didn't lack customers. Ordinary people wouldn't be qualified to enter even if they had money. The security guards and receptionists at the entrance were all enthusiastic, but their friendly but not intimate temperament showed that this club wasn't ordinary. "Sir, how can I help you?" Seeing Mu Zixian walk in with Wang Yu, the receptionist greeted them enthusiastically. "Fitness," Wang Yu said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Please show me your fitness card." The receptionist was still enthusiastic. Wang Yu took out the card that Li Jian gave him and handed it over. The receptionist took it with both hands and looked at it. The smile on her face immediately changed. "What's wrong?" The receptionist at the side saw the strange expression on the girl's face and quickly came over. When she saw the card, she was so shocked that she cried out on the spot, "This is a permanent card? It can't be wrong. It's a permanent card," the receptionist who first received Wang Yu said with certainty. The permanent card was the ultimate membership card of Li Jian's club. There were a total of 10 cards, and only 4 people had them. Other than Wang Yu, the other 3 were regular customers, and they were all people with great backgrounds. What made these employees most curious was the mysterious 4th person. Who exactly was he? He had never been here even after registering for the card. Now that they saw the 4th card holder was just a commoner shopping with his wife, how could they not be surprised? Although Wang Yu was inexperienced, he wasn't stupid. Seeing the expressions on the 2 girls' faces, he seemed to have guessed something, so he whispered to Mu Zixian, "It seems that Li Jian's card is quite valuable. Yeah. Why don't we return it to him?" Mu Zixian was completely a commoner. She bullied him, and he still gave her such a valuable thing. This made Mu Zixian feel insecure. As the saying goes, one shouldn't accept a reward without sowing. Mu Zixian knew how capable Wang Yu was. If Li Jian asked Wang Yu to do something, this wasn't a game. Thinking of this, Mu Zixian couldn't help but tug on Wang Yu's sleeve. "Okay." Wang Yu patted Mu Zixian's shoulder and nodded. At that time, the 2 receptionists also recovered from their shock. Chapter 862. The permanent card holders were all important people. It was an unwritten rule to inform the boss when they came here to spend money. It was reasonable for the receptionist to inform Li Jian. "I think it's better to inform him." Wang Yu looked at Mu Zixian and nodded. Wang Yu was still very obedient to his wife. In order to not let Mu Zixian worry, he already had the idea of returning the card to Li Jian. There was no such thing as an undeserved reward. Wang Yu was embarrassed to accept such an expensive thing from someone else. "Okay, I'll help you inform him now." The receptionist responded and walked back to the front desk. She picked up the phone and made a call. At this time, Li Jian was meeting a guest in the office. He received a call from the receptionist and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? What happened? Didn't I say not to disturb me now?" "A Mr. Wang wants to see you." The receptionist's voice came from the phone. "What Mr. Wang or Mr. Li? Is it a guest?" It had been a while. Li Jian was such a busy person that he had long thrown Wang Yu to the back of his mind. He had already forgotten that such a person existed. "It's a guest, a permanent card guest," the receptionist said again. "Permanent card?" Li Jian was slightly stunned and said in surprise, "That's impossible. Weren't there only 3 permanent cards given out? None of the 3 had the surname Wang. What's his card number?" "Number 1. The receptionist looked at the card in her hand. Li Jian was even more puzzled when he heard the receptionist say that. "Isn't the number 1 card my card?" As he said that, Li Jian habitually picked up his wallet on the table. He glanced at it and realized that his card was gone. Only then did he suddenly remember that his card had been given out not long ago. Thinking up to this point, Li Jian hurriedly said, "Let Brother Wang wait for a moment. I'll be there soon." After putting down the phone, Li Jian stood up and bowed to a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. "Teacher Liang, I have to meet a guest now. Sorry, please excuse me." It was very impolite to leave halfway when discussing business with a guest. Even though Li Jian had already apologized, The middle-aged man who was addressed as Teacher Liang still had some dissatisfaction on his face. When Teacher Liang heard that, she frowned slightly and said unhappily, "What kind of guest is this?" "He's so important," that Director Li abandoned the guest in front of him and ran out. Li Jian said, "I'm really sorry. It's an old friend. He's also in your line of work." Really? Originally, Teacher Liang was just a little emotional, but after hearing what Li Jian said, a hint of resistance suddenly appeared on her face. This Teacher Liang was also a martial arts practitioner. She was a martial arts expert that Li Jian had to beg for help to hire as a coach. The two of them had already discussed the issue of remuneration. Now that she heard that there was a colleague outside, Teacher Liang inevitably thought that it was a competitor that Li Jian had found. There were many martial artists with strange tempers. Li Jian had gone to great lengths to get Teacher Liang to come out of retirement. Teacher Liang also thought that this high-paying job was custom-made for her. Now that a competitor had suddenly appeared, how could she not be angry? However, Teacher Liang was a martial artist after all. The displeasure on her face was fleeting. Following that, Teacher Liang said with a fake smile, "It's a colleague. Then I'll have to go take a look and help you widen your eyes." Sure. Li Jian was a businessman, so how could he not know what Teacher Liang meant? It just so happened that Li Jian wanted to test Teacher Liang's martial arts, so he agreed immediately. In a short while, Li Jian and Teacher Liang arrived at the reception hall. At that moment, Wang Yu was sitting on the sofa and drinking tea with Mu Zixian. Wang Yu was still all right. He came from a large family and had an extraordinary bearing. Furthermore, he was dull and inexperienced, so he was very indifferent. Mu Zixian was a little embarrassed. It was true that this lady had seen the world, but she had still been at the bottom of society. It was inevitable that she would have stage fright when she suddenly came to such a high-class clubhouse. Her appearance of a commoner was revealed. Teacher Liang stood beside Li Jian. When she saw Wang Yu and his wife, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. "What martial artists? I think they're scammers." Of course, Li Jian had seen Wang Yu's real martial arts before. Now that he saw that it was really Wang Yu, he was very excited. "Brother Wang!" Li Jian greeted him from afar and went up to greet him. "That little Li, right?" Wang Yu stood up and nodded with a smile. "Why do you have time to come and play today? I haven't seen you for so long." "I thought you forgot about my place," Li Jian said half-truthfully. It was true that Wang Yu didn't come. As for what he said later, if Wang Yu didn't come, this grandson would have forgotten about Wang Yu. Wang Yu smiled and said, "I went back home recently and have been busy. See, I just improved my martial arts, so I came here." "Didn't Brother Wang train your martial arts to the peak? You can still improve?" When Li Jian heard that, he was very surprised. Li Jian was also a person who loved martial arts. It was just that he didn't have a teacher. However, his understanding of martial arts wasn't inferior to Mu Zixian's. Although Li Jian hadn't seen other martial arts masters, he knew that a martial artist like Wang Yu was definitely at the top of the industry. It was amazing that someone at this level could still improve his realm. "What are you saying?" Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "What do you mean by at the peak?" "There is no end to martial arts and no limit. We martial artists have to surpass ourselves, hee. Wang Yu was just about to educate Li Jian when Teacher Liang, who was beside Li Jian, couldn't help but sneer. "What, there is no end to martial arts and no limit?" Teacher Liang had practiced martial arts for so many years, but she didn't dare to boast like that. Seeing Wang Yu acting pretentiously, Teacher Liang put on a fake smile and asked Wang Yu, "Young friend, may I ask what realm your martial arts have reached?" Wang Yu was a good-tempered person. He wasn't displeased with Teacher Liang's sudden interruption. Instead, he replied honestly, "I just broke through to the Grandmaster realm." When Teacher Liang heard Wang Yu's words just now, she only sneered in her heart. Now that she heard it, she laughed out loud. Wang Yu was confused by Teacher Liang's laughter, and looked at Li Jian in confusion. Li Jian smiled and looked at Teacher Liang. You don't have time to help me, right? I'll find someone else. This is Liang Zhenyun, Teacher Liang. He's a martial arts coach I just hired. Hello, Teacher Liang. Wang Yu gave Liang Zhenyun a fist salute. Seeing Wang Yu's fist salute, Liang Zhenyun was displeased again. Liang Zhenyun's behavior caused Wang Yu to be slightly stunned. He asked Liang Zhenyun calmly, "Is there something wrong?" Chapter 863. In the Kung Fu community, seniority was very important. The higher the seniority, the more powerful one was. Wang Yu's fist salute just now meant that they were of the same generation. Wang Yu was the next leader of the Kung Fu world, and a master who had just reached the master realm. There was probably no one in the world who had a higher seniority than Wang Yu. Wang Yu and Liang Zhenyun were of the same generation, which showed that he was giving Liang Zhenyun enough face. However, Liang Zhenyun saw that Wang Yu was only in his 20s and dared to talk to him as if he were of the same generation. Hee. Wang Yu was not a narrow-minded person. He didn't take Liang Zhenyun's words to heart. He just smiled and continued to talk to Li Jian. Liang Zhenyun saw that Wang Yu dared to ignore him, and he became even angrier. He asked, "What realm did you say you were in?" "I just reached the master realm," Wang Yu repeated patiently. He was neither servile nor overbearing. "Ha ha ha, yawning toad. How arrogant of you!" This time, Liang Zhenyun didn't care about Li Jian's face and directly retorted to Wang Yu. The Zhongshu realm was the highest realm that most martial artists could never reach in their entire lives. Even the heads of the 4 great clans were only at the Zhongshu realm. How could a brat who was still wet behind the ears dare to say that he had broken through the Zhongshu realm? "Oh." Wang Yu nodded and then asked Li Jian, "Where's the gym?" "I'm planning to consolidate my realm." Li Jian didn't expect Wang Yu to be so good-tempered. He didn't care even if he was rebuked. Wouldn't he fail to achieve his original goal? Of course, Li Jian was too embarrassed to urge Wang Yu to compete with Liang Zhenyun. He could only say to Wang Yu, "It seems that Brother Wang is in a hurry. I'll take you and sister-in-law there." Then, Li Jian led Wang Yu and Mu Zixian inside. Liang Zhenyun said mercilessly, "Mr. Li, you don't have to flatter him. He's a liar." Actually, Wang Yu didn't want to bother with Liang Zhenyun because he was Li Jian's guest. Therefore, when faced with Liang Zhenyun's repeated provocations, Wang Yu pretended to be dumb. Now that Liang Zhenyun was pointing at Wang Yu and calling him a liar, even Wang Yu couldn't help but feel a little angry. "Teacher Liang, we have no enmity between us. Why do you have to hurt me?" Wang Yu frowned. Hearing this, Liang Zhenyun coldly snorted and said, "Humph. The reason why martial arts are declining is because of the swindlers back then. Seeing someone like you, of course I can't tolerate it." "Why are you so sure that I'm a liar?" Wang Yu was furious. Wang Yu was also extremely disgusted by those who used the guise of martial arts to deceive others. Now that he was scolded as such, one could imagine how Wang Yu felt. Li Jian quickly tried to smooth things over and said, "Teacher Liang, Brother Wang has real skills." What skills?" "Do you dare to exchange a few moves with me?" Liang Zhenyun provoked as he stared at Wang Yu. Wang Yu shook his head and said, "People who practice martial arts are most afraid of personal fights. When I left home, the elders in my family specifically warned me." "How is it? Did you give yourself away?" Seeing that Wang Yu didn't dare to accept the challenge, Liang Zhenyun smiled and glanced at Li Jian. Li Jian was also puzzled. He had seen Wang Yu's martial arts before. Now that he didn't dare to accept the challenge, could it be that he really couldn't? This was a little ridiculous, so be it. I have to go back to work. Little Li, lead the way. Wang Yu sighed and said to Li Jian. At this moment, Liang Zhenyun stepped forward and blocked in front of Li Jian. He tiptoed and his cloth shoes drew a straight line on the granite ground. Seeing this scene, not only Li Jian, but Wang Yu's eyes also lit up. Wang Yu had seen many experts who trained their legs, but it was the first time that Wang Yu had seen someone who trained their legs to this level. This Liang Zhenyun was clearly skilled. No wonder he was so arrogant. The tip of Liang Zhenyun's feet slid across the granite, and a 2-meter-long line was completed in one breath. He said to Wang Yu calmly, "If you don't compete with me, don't even think about crossing this line today." Wang Yu said indifferently, "Fine, you win." Wang Yu was in a hurry to consolidate his cultivation, so he didn't have the time to mess around. "If you lose, please get out now. Otherwise, even if you're Director Li's friend, I won't let a martial arts hooligan cheat in front of me." "You!" Faced with Liang Zhenyun's rudeness, Wang Yu was immediately infuriated. At this time, Mu Zixin pulled on Wang Yu's clothes and said, "Fight him." But Wang Yu was about to say that he didn't have time, but Mu Zixin said, "I don't like him." Wang Yu was silent for a moment, then stared at Liang Zhenyun and said, "If that's the case, then Teacher Liang, please make your move." As Wang Yu said this, he stepped on the line drawn by Liang Zhenyun, indicating that he accepted Liang Zhenyun's challenge. Liang Zhenyun was surprised when he saw that Wang Yu dared to accept the challenge. He then narrowed his eyes and said to Wang Yu, "Young man, you have guts. This old man is a bit arrogant. I'll let you have 3 moves first." Wang Yu replied, "I'm still young, so I should be polite. Teacher Liang, please." "If that's the case, then I won't be polite." Liang Zhenyun said that he would let Wang Yu make the first move, but his body was still very honest. As he said this, he already sent a kick towards Wang Yu. There were also advantages to the decline of martial art. That was, there were very few people who swindled and deceived people. Those who knew martial arts had very strong hands. Liang Zhenyun was even more so. Thinking about it, with Li Jian's status, how could the teacher he hired be weak? Liang Zhenyun's kick was just like the line he had drawn before, fierce and fierce, filled with the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Li Jian and Mu Zixin felt the pressure from far away. Tan Tue. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed, and his left hand moved to his waist, his feet like a sheep horse, while his right hand drew an arc and chopped at Liang Zhenyun's ankle. As the fist and leg collided, Wang Yu felt a huge force coming towards him. As he chopped his hand, he retreated half a meter, canceling out the force. Liang Zhenyun's first kick was directly blocked. Not bad? Liang Zhenyun was startled, but his feet didn't stop moving. With a turn of his body, his other leg was already above Wang Yu's head, and he smashed it down. Wang Yu switched from horse stance to Xingyi Fist's tiger step. He raised his palm and blocked Liang Zhenyun's attack, at the same time retreating another half a meter, canceling out Liang Zhenyun's second kick. The Tan Tue martial art had always been ferocious and ruthless. Each move was faster than the previous, and once it gained momentum, it would be relentless. Wang Yu was kicked twice in a row, and Liang Zhenyun had already used all of his moves. Seeing that Wang Yu had also blocked the second kick, Liang Zhenyun's body flipped in the air. His hands pressed against the ground, and his legs kicked backwards, both of his feet kicking towards Wang Yu. This time, Wang Yu didn't cancel out the force. Instead, he punched out with both fists, directly at the soles of Liang Zhenyun's feet. Wang Yu retreated another meter, while Liang Zhenyun was pushed back 3 to 4 meters by Wang Yu. Chapter 864. Hiss. Seeing this scene, Liang Zhenyun's expression immediately changed from surprise to fear. Liang Zhenyun could draw a line on the ground with the tip of his foot. In Wang Yu's eyes, there were only a handful of people who were skilled in martial arts. Liang Zhenyun also knew his own strength, which was why he dared to be so arrogant. However, he also knew how difficult it was to erase the line on the ground with the sole of his foot. Scientifically speaking, the smaller the surface area of the foot, the greater the pressure. The smaller the surface area of the foot, the smaller the pressure. If one wanted to erase the line Liang Jinyun drew, they would have to use at least several times the force. However, as Wang Yu blocked Liang Jinyun's attack, he easily erased the line on the ground. One had to know that Liang Jinyun had to concentrate to draw the line, but Wang Yu was multitasking when he erased the line. Liang Jinyun and Wang Yu were probably the only ones who understood the difference between the two. Liang Jinyun knew that he had really met a tough opponent this time. However, Liang Jinyun was also an expert of his generation. Now that he was old, he naturally knew what it meant to fight behind closed doors. The reason why Liang Jinyun didn't hide it from outsiders was because he wanted to embarrass Wang Yu. However, he didn't expect that the young man in front of him was so strong that it exceeded his imagination. Now that the arrow had been shot, it was too late to retract it. Both sides had already started fighting, and Wang Yu had given him 3 moves. If Liang Jinyun admitted defeat now, not only would he lose his old face, but he would also lose the reputation of his family's Tan Tut. Now that things had come to this, he could only bite the bullet and fight. At this moment, Wang Yu was also filled with shock. Logically speaking, although Liang Jinyun's strength couldn't be compared to the leaders of the 4 great clans and Old Tong, he wasn't far from them. With Wang Yu's usual skills, even if he could win, he would be in a stalemate for dozens of moves. However, Liang Jinyun kicked 3 times in a row, each stronger than the last, but Wang Yu easily blocked it. At the same time, he used Liang Jinyun's strength to erase the 2-meter line on the ground in 3 steps. In the past, Wang Yu definitely wouldn't have been able to do this. It seemed that sparring with an expert like Liang Jinyun had already started to make Wang Yu's nerves and muscles remember the realm he had just broken through. Wang Yu was pleasantly surprised by this effect. No matter how much he trained his body, it was still a dead thing. How could it compare to an expert feeding him moves? This was the same as the difference between playing a game and ranking. Playing 1,000 games would not be able to improve one's strength as much as playing a few dozen ranking matches. At this moment, Liang Jinyun was feeding moves to Wang Yu, giving Wang Yu a helping hand. However, Wang Yu was right in front of Liang Jinyun and saw that Liang Jinyun was in a daze. He knew that when Liang Jinyun saw his strength, fear appeared in his heart. In a battle between martial artists, once fear appeared in their hearts, they would lose half the battle. Now, Wang Yu was counting on Liang Jinyun to temper himself. If Liang Jinyun went easy on him at the critical moment, wouldn't that be cheating him? Thinking of this, Wang Yu smiled and said, "Old Liang, were you going easy on me with those 3 moves? Show me what you're made of." More than 90% of martial artists cared about their reputation, and Liang Jinyun was one of them. Originally, when he saw Wang Yu's martial arts, he was still a little afraid. Now that he was provoked by Wang Yu's words, the bravery and ruthlessness of a martial artist was immediately stimulated. Who cares what kind of expert he is? If I don't steam steamed buns, I won't let a brat laugh at me even if I'm beaten to death. Humph. Don't be so arrogant, this old man will teach you a lesson. Liang Jinyun made up his mind. He leaned forward and kicked at Wang Yu's lower body. Wang Yu swung his hand down and slapped Liang Jinyun's leg away. His other hand stabbed 2 fingers at Liang Jinyun's eyes. Liang Jinyun raised his hand and blocked Wang Yu's fingers. At the same time, he used the force of Wang Yu's slap to turn around and kick at Wang Yu's calf. Seeing Liang Jinyun's kick coming at him, Wang Yu didn't dodge. Instead, he took a step forward and bent his knee, aiming at Liang Jinyun's crotch. Liang Jinyun broke out in cold sweat and immediately retracted his leg. Damn it, Wang Yu is too vicious. He's bullying people with his height and long legs. If Liang Jinyun had moved even half a step forward, he would have lost everything. Although the audience didn't know what Wang Yu was thinking, they weren't stupid. They could tell from Wang Yu's posture and Liang Jinyun's reaction that Wang Yu was quick-witted. Kung Fu was a fighting technique that could effectively knock down the enemy. If it wasn't for the restrictions on the arena, the jujitsu and wrestling techniques in the fighting ring wouldn't be able to shine. Liang Jinyun was a master of Tan Tue. His aura was turbulent and varied, and he could advance and retreat with ease. Wang Yu was a martial arts prodigy. He could learn any boxing technique the moment he learned it and master it the moment he learned it. At such a young age, he was able to gather the strengths of hundreds of different martial arts. He was worthy of his title as a genius. His punches were big and powerful, and his punches were soft and hard. His attacks and defenses were perfect. The two of them advanced and retreated as fast as lightning. Their attacks and defenses were like butterflies fluttering through flowers. Although they weren't as beautiful as the exaggerated special effects on TV, they had a sense of realism and savagery. Even if they were amateurs, they could only watch the show. The battle between the two of them had everyone's eyes glued to it. Under Liang Jinyun's barrage of attacks, Wang Yu's new realm slowly merged with his body, and he felt his opponent's every move and move. The two of them fought for a full 30 rounds. Liang Jinyun's stamina was slightly inferior, and he began to pant. At that time, Wang Yu's cultivation had also been completed. Taking advantage of Liang Jinyun's kick, Wang Yu grabbed Liang Jinyun's shirt and lightly threw him away. Wang Yu's chest also took a kick from Liang Jinyun, and he took a few steps back. At the same time, he cupped his hands towards Liang Jinyun and said, "Teacher Liang's Tan Tue is indeed powerful. I have the advantage in stamina. How about we stop here?" Wang Yu had looked for a job before, so he naturally knew the pain of being eliminated. Not to mention the fact that Liang Jinyun had helped him temper his realm, Liang Jinyun was still a true expert. He was just trying to make a living, so it wasn't right for Wang Yu to come and destroy his rice bowl. At this time, it was better to call it a draw. Liang Jinyun, who had been thrown away, was dumbfounded when he heard Wang Yu's words. He originally thought that Wang Yu would humiliate him, but he didn't expect Wang Yu to take the initiative and ask for a draw. Of course, Wang Yu had good intentions, but in the eyes of the awkward Liang Jinyun, it was like charity. "Humph, are you looking down on this old man? What draw? This old man lost, and this old man will give you the position of coach." Liang Jinyun snorted coldly, glanced at Wang Yu, and strode out. At this time, Li Jian hurriedly stopped him and said, Teacher Liang, don't go. You're thinking too much. Brother Wang isn't here to apply for the coaching position." Chapter 865. Wang Yu knew that martial arts practitioners were very arrogant. He thought that he had done something wrong, so he did not go up to help. He could only silently watch as Liang Jinyun pushed Li Jian away and walked out as if there was no one else around. Looking at the bewildered Wang Yu, Li Jian said with a bitter expression, "Brother Wang, that's not very kind of you. If you want to come, then come. Why did you make my coach run away in anger, Brother Wang?" At this moment, Liang Jinyun seemed to realize something and suddenly turned around. He stared at Wang Yu and asked, "Your surname is Wang?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded. "Who is teacher Wang Tianlong of Violent Thunder shakes the 9 provinces to you?" Liang Jinyun asked again. "My father," Wang Yu said calmly. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Liang Jinyun's expression became extremely ugly. "So you are the peerless genius of the Wang family? My father was defeated by you 10 years ago?" Senior Liang saw that I was young and thought too highly of me. Moreover, Mr. Liang is quite old and not suitable for martial art. Is Mr. Liang doing well? Wang Yu asked embarrassedly. At that time, Wang Yu was in high spirits. He was also a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. He went around challenging martial arts schools. When he left his house, he first challenged the Chaquan and Tan Tue schools that were closest to his house. Now that he thought about it, he was indeed a bastard. Liang Jinyun sighed and said, "Sigh, my father passed away last year." "Ah?" Hearing Liang Jinyun's words, Wang Yu was shocked. Why did old master Liang Jinyun was only in his 40s? At that time, the Liang family was located in the Linqing region of northwest Shandong. There was a tradition of early marriage. Old master Liang was only in his early 60s. In the circle of martial arts that specialized in health, he was not considered old. It was really unexpected that he passed away so early. Our Liang family is a small business. My father practiced martial arts when he was young and left with a hidden injury. We could not afford to treat it, so. As for martial arts, I do not intend to let my son learn it anymore. Liang Jinyun's eyes were glistening with tears. Although Wang Yu came from a large family, he understood Liang Jinyun's situation. Most martial arts families were in the same situation. It was not that they did not want to pass on their skills, but with martial arts declining, it was difficult for them to make ends meet. Who could afford to practice? If they were not forced by circumstances, no martial artist would swallow their pride and become a fitness instructor for others. The reason why Liang Jinyun attacked Wang Yu was because he suspected that Wang Yu was a swindler who caused the decline of his martial arts. Teacher Liang, I know you are skilled in martial arts. You don't have to do this. Wang Yu tried to persuade Liang Jinyun. Liang Jinyun shook his head. Liang I Jinyun Liang Yu I you. Liang Jinyun shook his head. Sigh, at the end of the day, our Liang family Tantue still lost to your Wang family style. Master Liang, that's where you're wrong. Hearing Liang Jinyun say that, Wang Yu said in a serious tone, there is no difference in martial arts but knowledge. I think that once martial arts are divided into different sects, they will be at a disadvantage. Why do you say that? Liang Jinyun asked with a frown. The martial arts community was very prejudiced. Wang Yu's words were a little disgraceful. Which sect in the world do you think has the most perfect martial arts? Wang Yu asked. The most perfect? Liang Jinyun thought for a moment and said, no martial arts can be invincible. That's right. There is no perfect martial arts in the world. Only by mastering all martial arts can one become stronger endlessly. This, Liang Jinyun had always been educated by sectarian views since he was young. This was the first time he had heard such a shameful statement. What made Liang Jinyun even more surprised was that he couldn't refute Wang Yu's statement at all. Following that, Wang Yu added, I know why you don't want to teach martial arts, but for your own sake, and for the sake of martial arts, please don't leave. Liang Jinyun was very prejudiced by sectarianism. He did not want to teach martial arts, but he could not stand his family's poverty and Li Jian's tempting offer. The reason why he wanted to leave, other than being afraid of embarrassing himself in front of Wang Yu, was that he did not want to teach his family's martial arts to outsiders. Wang Yu's words directly hit Liang Jinyun where it hurt. Sectarianism led to the decline of martial art. If he taught martial arts, even if he could not find a disciple he liked, he would have the capital to let his next generation learn martial arts. Liang Jinyun was stunned for a while before he sighed and said, I have always thought that I was extraordinary, but today, I finally know that people call you a genius not just because you are from the Wang family. Seeing that Liang Jinyun was wavering, Li Jian hurriedly said, Teacher Liang, we can talk about the salary later. As for your child, he can learn here while you are here. I will take care of all the expenses. This. Liang Jinyun was touched. He looked at Wang Yu and Li Jian and said, There is no need to talk about the salary. As long as you can let my child learn martial arts, I will be satisfied. Brother Wang, I will take you to the gym now. Seeing that Liang Jinyun had finally decided to stay, Li Jian excitedly pulled Wang Yu and continued walking. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, There is no need for that now. Why? Li Jian asked in confusion. Because of Teacher Liang. Wang Yu said and bowed to Liang Jinyun. Then, he said goodbye to Li Jian and Liang Jinyun and left Tianyuan Sports Center with Mu Zixin. On the way back, Mu Zixian suddenly said, "Hubby, you have not returned the card to Boss Li." "I left it on the counter." Wang Yu smiled. "Why didn't you give it to him personally?" Mu Zixian asked curiously. "Because he will definitely not accept it." The weather in March was bright and sunny, but the sky was filled with willow catkins, which made people feel inexplicably annoyed. Wang Yu, who had improved his realm, could not care less about these things. He dragged Mu Zixian around the streets for the whole day and only returned home at night. The next day, Wang Yu was scolded by the Chuanjian people when he entered the game. Not only the B*cheese like Wuji, but even the two ladies, Yang Na and Linglong Meng, questioned, "Old cow, where did you and Sister Xian go yesterday? You said you would leave for a while, but you did not come back online?" In the end, Wang Yu was annoyed by the group of people and simply said, "Why are you single dogs meddling in the affairs of a couple? F*CK, how dare you mock us?" The Chuanjian people, who had been forced to eat dog food, once again drowned Wang Yu in their saliva. It was only when Wang Yu silently put on her gloves that the crowds fooling around stopped. Wu Ji looked at Wang Yu, who was constantly changing her weapon form. He cleared his throat and said, "Everyone, be serious. Let's get down to business." Yes. We are serious people. We must talk business." Everyone looked at Wang Yu's weapon with lingering fear and hurriedly sat up straight. At that moment, there was a knock on the door of Chuanjian's office. Chapter 866. Captain Don't Shoot and Big Bear were the leaders of Finger Heaven. They had already made an agreement with the Quanzhen sect to fight together today. Therefore, the Quanzhen people were not surprised when they knocked on the door. On the other hand, when Don't Shoot's group suddenly came to Chuanzhen's territory, they felt like sheep walking into a tiger's den. It couldn't be helped. The last time they fought, Point Sword in the Sky was really traumatized. Asking a tiger for its skin, there had to be some psychological process. Leader boss, you're quite punctual." Wuji looked at his watch. There was still half an hour until the agreed time. He was surprised by Don't Shoot's sense of time. There were always some people in the game, especially those big guild leaders, who liked to show off after setting up a time with others. Then, they would show up late to show off their status. Captain Don't Shoot, he had power in the game and money in real life. He was a typical rich kid. Wuji was a little surprised that he had such a strong sense of punctuality. It seemed like this guy wasn't without merit. Don't Shoot smiled and said, "I'm used to it. Are you guys ready?" Wuji looked at Wang Yu, who was sighing and stroking his sword, and the other members of Chuanjian. He smiled and said, "Of course, we've been waiting for a long time." It was obvious that being punctual was a basic quality for Chuanjian. "Okay, then please join the team." Don't Shoot saw that Chuanjian had something in common with him, and smiled. He sent everyone an invitation to join the team. When they saw Don't Shoot's invitation, Chuanjian was stunned. Then, they looked at Wuji and said in the channel, "Didn't Wuji ask for a leader this time?" Under normal circumstances, the team leader would take on an important role as a commander. No one cared much about this. After all, as long as the team leader didn't shoot at the Quanzhen sect, he wouldn't let the Quanzhen sect do nothing. The most important thing was that the distribution of equipment had always been in the hands of the team leader. Therefore, if the Quanzhen sect wanted to help others fight the dungeon, they had to get the position of team leader. Wuji didn't reply. Instead, he said in the guild chat, "Enter." Although everyone didn't know what Wuji was up to, they all understood that Wuji had never been at a disadvantage, so they didn't hesitate and joined the group. The party leader, Don't Shoot, as expected of a god-level rich person. After everyone entered the party, they took out a scroll and tore it open. Immediately after, the scenery changed and everyone was instantly teleported to the level 70 Scarlet Maple Forest in the east of Yuhuiqing City. Currently, a group teleportation scroll was selling for several thousand gold coins each. It was just a 20-minute journey, yet he had spent several thousand gold coins. Leader, don't shoot. Sure enough, the rich are the troublesome ones. The team had landed on a patch of white land in the middle of a maple forest. Before them was a cloud of gray smoke, and level 70 monsters roamed the area around it. Only this area was extremely quiet. Clearly, the team had deliberately chosen this location to land on. The party leader, Don't Shoot, also felt the burning gazes of the Quan Jin players because he had casually torn a scroll. He hurriedly explained, I had no choice. There are level 70 monsters all around us, and it's very troublesome to clear them out. It's better to spend some money than to waste time. Haha. Wuji laughed and praised. I admire the party leader's attitude of treating time like life. There's no time to lose. Let's enter the dungeon. Okay. Don't Shoot nodded and walked to the front of the smoke. He placed his hand in the middle of the smoke, and everyone was instantly swallowed by it. System notification. You have discovered the trial dungeon. Treasure vault. The treasure vault was a typical cave. The gray light and the occasional sound of wind created a very frightening atmosphere. After entering the dungeon, Don't Shoot pointed forward and said to Wang Yu's group, the monsters in this dungeon are very intelligent. That's not important. Before Don't Shoot could finish, Wuji interrupted. Before we start fighting, we have to clarify some things. Although you are the party leader, I will be the one to distribute the equipment. Do you understand this? Don't Shoot naturally knew what Wuji meant. He smiled and said, of course. If this dungeon wasn't the only quest dungeon, I would have thrown the party leader to you. What? The only quest dungeon? Why didn't you say so earlier? Hearing Don't Shoot say that, the expressions of Wuji and Quan Jin's group changed. The only quest dungeon was different from the regular dungeons, hidden dungeons, and normal quest dungeons. Just like the bosses that spawned because of quests, the only quest dungeon was created because of quest. Once it was completed, it would disappear forever. At the same time, only players who had the quest could trigger it and enter the dungeon. Apart from that, the monsters and the only quest dungeons that spawned because of quests had a very deceptive characteristic. They almost never dropped anything other than quest items. At that time, Wuji had told Don't Shoot that he wanted all the drops from the dungeon except quest items. Now, wouldn't Quan Jin's group be working for nothing? I said it before, the quest dungeon. Don't Shoot shrugged helplessly. His face was full of grievance, and even a little bit of pride. *T. You're changing the concept, Wuji said anxiously with a pale face. The quest dungeon and the only quest dungeon were two completely different concepts. Wuji had been killing birds all day, but today, he was actually being pecked in the eye by a bird. Who were these people from Quan Jin? They were a group of people who only took advantage of others and never suffered losses. How could they be willing to work for others for free? Seeing Don't Shoot's attitude, they immediately took out their weapons. They wanted to kill Don't Shoot first. Don't Shoot saw that Quan Jin's group was anxious and quickly said, but you've already accepted the quest, and we've already paid the deposit. If you go back on your word or attack us now, you'll have to pay double the deposit. So be it. We don't care. Wuji imitated Don't Shoot's expression and shrugged. I've been rich recently, so I don't care about a few tens of thousands of gold. Why you guys are so shameless? How can you break the contract just like that? Don't Shoot originally thought that Wuji, who always took advantage of others, would helplessly help them clear the dungeon when he heard that they had to pay double the compensation. Who knew that Wuji would reject them so calmly? Don't Shoot instantly panicked. Don't Shoot was still a little inexperienced. Seeing his expression, Wuji revealed a cunning smile. We're willing to pay double the compensation. How is that shameless? Be careful or I'll sue you for slander. Don't Shoot was speechless. In the end, he gave in and said, name your price. What do we have to do for you to help us? 100,000. I have some doubts about your character, so I have to pay first, Wuji said with a smile. You! Don't Shoot almost died from anger when he heard Wuji's conditions. This guy was rich, but he wasn't a spendthrift. 100,000 gold to clear a dungeon was much more expensive than hiring their professional players to work overtime. Chapter 867. Don't Shoot seemed to be afraid that Wuji would go back on his word. When he heard what Wuji said, he became anxious again. 100,000 is fine, but can you guarantee that you'll clear the dungeon? Wuji smiled. It's hard to say, but you know Chuanjin's character. We're paid to do things, and we won't slack off. We'll definitely do our best. Putting Chuanjin's character aside, when it came to Chuanjin's character, even Wang Yu, a member of Chuanjin, felt a little embarrassed. Wang Yu had never seen a person who wanted to extort money from their employer after entering a dungeon. Of course, if you don't believe us, we can quit now. As he spoke, Wuji gestured to the Chuanjin members. Everyone pretended to want to quit the dungeon. Okay. Whatever you say. Don't Shoot was shocked. He quickly took out a 100,000 gold contract and handed it to Wuji. Wuji took the contract and smiled. Why didn't you do this from the start? Why did you have to make things so troublesome? Don't Shoot looked depressed. If I knew this would happen, I would have been on guard against you from the start. I just beat you at your own game. I'm surprised that boss would be so calculative for such a small amount of money. Wuji laughed coldly. Don't Shoot's face turned red. He waved his hand and said, Okay, let's clear the dungeon. When the Chuanjin members saw Don't Shoot's reaction, they asked Wuji in confusion, Are you two doing some dirty deals? Why are you so sure that he'll pay? Wuji said, Because he doesn't dare to make us quit the dungeon. Why? Everyone was still confused. Wuji said, Because they've already cleared this dungeon 3 times. There were many types of quests in Rebirth, and the unique quests had a time limit. Otherwise, if a player accepted a quest and didn't do it for a month, they would have been killed hundreds of times by other players. The maximum time limit for guild quests was 1 month. This dungeon was opened once a week. Finger Unto the Heavens had already been cleared 3 times. This was obviously the last time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have paid such a high price to hire outside help. Hearing what Wuji said, everyone suddenly understood. Wang Yu said disdainfully, F***ck, you even took the money and still cheated people. You're too shameless. Humph. Wuji snorted coldly. If he didn't want to trick us, he wouldn't have been tricked by me. Indeed, if Captain Don't Shoot had made it clear from the beginning that this was the only quest dungeon and there was no profit to be made, Wuji would have negotiated other conditions with him long ago. He wouldn't have raised the price after entering the dungeon. However, in Captain Don't Shoot's mind, Chuanjin was a group of people who valued money more than their lives. Therefore, when he heard that Wuji wanted the profit from the dungeon, he wanted to make Chuanjin suffer in silence. Yu Huiqing's major guilds had almost all been cheated by Chuanjin before. If any guild could salvage the situation in front of Chuanjin, they would not only get benefits. Little did they know that although these people loved money, they were not inferior to Captain Don't Shoot when it came to spending money. It was just a few tens of thousands of gold in compensation. How could this group of hooligans be scared off? They went for wool and came home shorn. Taking people's money to eliminate disasters was Chuanjin's motto. Even if they didn't have a good impression of Captain Don't Shoot, they had to do their best after taking the money. In terms of the spirit of the contract, Chuanjin had never cheated. The first stage of the Enemy of the Hidden Treasure was called a Long Cave. It was filled with level 60 elite monsters called Treasure Hunting Vanguard and Greedy Thief. Treasure Hunting Vanguard monsters were warrior monsters. They were strong and ferocious. They wielded their pickaxes vigorously and would cause the target to be knocked back. Greedy Thieves were invisible monsters. They appeared and disappeared mysteriously and were very disgusting. However, Captain Don't Shoot had already led people to clear the dungeon 3 times. Everyone was familiar with the dungeon. They were well prepared. As soon as they stepped into the cave area, Captain Don't Shoot fired a 700 true sight gem. The market price was 700 gold. Suddenly, a light illuminated the area around Captain Don't Shoot. With Captain Don't Shoot as the center, all greedy thieves within a 5-meter radius had nowhere to hide. There was no need to question the strength of Chuanjin's group. The 7 or 8 players who were able to follow Captain Don't Shoot into this dungeon were also the elites of the elite. Under Wuji's command, the group quickly cleared out the monsters in the cave and killed their way to the end. As everyone expected, the drop rate of the unique quest was extremely low. Any dungeon with level 60 elite monsters would at least drop some attribute equipment after killing so many monsters. However, everyone had not even dropped a single piece of white equipment along the way. Mingdu and the others originally had a glimmer of hope. At this moment they were filled with indignation. At the end of the cave was a circular platform. On the platform was a cover covered with runes. It was probably the entrance to the next scene. Captain Don't Shoot pointed at the cover and said, "We've cleared this place 3 times, but we haven't been able to enter." Ming Jian Daoshua laughed and said, "What's so difficult about this? Isn't it just a locked door? Just open the lock and it's over." It would be great if it was that simple. Captain Don't Shoot sighed and pointed at the 2 shiny red gems on both sides of the cover. "Do you see those 2 positions? These 2 gems are magic arrays that seal the cover. Once you enter the area of the cover, you'll be killed by the magic array. What's even more infuriating is that these 2 gems can't be broken. Boss Wuji, I've long heard that you're resourceful. Do you have a way to open this entrance?" Captain Don't Shoot thought that Wuji would have to think for a while. However, before Wuji could say anything, Chuanjin's group laughed and said, "This is too easy." When Captain Don't Shoot heard this, his mouth curled up into the sky. His sword pointed at the sky. The others also had faces of disbelief. The game had been open for so long, and everyone had more or less encountered the combination of traps and magic arrays. The usual method was to first destroy the magic array before opening the lock. However, these 2 gems were immune to attack. It was simply invulnerable. It was true that the people from Chuanjin were good at fighting, but this was a question of intelligence. It wasn't something that could be solved with brute force. What was the use of being good at fighting? Seeing that Captain Don't Shoot and Sword Point at the sky were full of doubt, Wuji said, "Daoshua, go and show them." Mingjian Daoshua received the order, and came to the side of the gems with a smile. Then, he took out a shovel used for digging traps from his bag, and started digging around the base of the gems. In a short while, Mingjian Daoshua dug out the 2 large gems along with the base. After digging out the gems, Mingjian Daoshua switched the shovel in his hand to a dagger. He casually flicked it, and with a click, the lock on the cover broke. Fine, the system didn't play by the rules. The people from Chuanjin were even more ruthless. They directly dug out the root. Chapter 868. Scarlet Blood Moon, left rare magic tool, essential for setting up magic arrays. Cannot be destroyed. Scarlet. Can be used with Scarlet Blood Moon, right? To activate magic array Scarlet Blood Sacrifice. Deals 20% of maximum HP as true damage to the target every second. Scarlet Blood Moon, right rare magic tool, essential for setting up magic arrays. Cannot be destroyed. Blood Sacrifice. Can be used with Scarlet Blood Moon, left, to activate magic array Scarlet Blood Sacrifice. After killing the target, the magic array's energy can be replenished. Magic Tool, the most expensive consumable in the game. The most common magic tools were teleportation scrolls, return scrolls, and magic scrolls. Even these common magic tools were priceless. One could imagine the value of a rare magic tool like Scarlet Blood Moon. Magic arrays were high-end technology that players could not grasp. Wuji's pet illusionary snake's maze magic array was one of them. However, illusionary snake's maze magic array was a support type. Its value was slightly lower than an attack type. Although this Scarlet Blood Moon was a simple purchase, the magic array's effect was not simple at all. Not only did it deal shocking damage, but it was also self-sufficient. It completely conformed to the law of energy conservation. If this was placed at the entrance of a guild encampment, it would be a lethal weapon. Looking at the magic array in Mingjian Daoshue's hand, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Even if they racked their brains, they wouldn't have thought that there was another more domineering way to break this magic array apart from destroying it. What they didn't know was that the people of the Quanzhen sect had always believed in the principle of taking whatever they could and destroying whatever they couldn't. At the same time, the party leader regretted not shooting. The value of this magic array was much higher than ordinary magic tools. From a strategic point of view, it was even more priceless. Of course, the party leader didn't shoot because he was worried about the money. He regretted not thinking of this method. Such a good treasure was right in front of him, but he didn't pick it up. If he had pried it off the first 3 times, there would be a solid barrier around the 4 entrances of the guild encampment. "Are you selling this? I'll pay in RMB." The party leader asked enviously as he looked at the magic array in Famous Sword's hand. "I haven't had enough yet." Famous Sword Du Shui rolled his eyes and tossed the 2 Scarlet Blood Moons into his bag. The party leader suddenly regretted agreeing to Chuanzhen's conditions for all the dungeon's profits. "All right, we can go down now." No matter how much he regretted it, clearing the dungeon was the most important thing. Seeing that the passageway had opened, the party leader waved his hand and gave the order to continue forward. However, at this moment, a scarlet pillar of light suddenly rose from the passageway. At the same time, a terrifying roar came from below the passageway. "Despicable thief! How dare you steal my treasure!" Accompanied by a roar, a monster jumped out from the tunnel. The monster was 4 to 5 meters tall, with 2 bull horns on its head and 2 large wings on its back. Its blue face was covered in mucus, and its purple hair was crawling with maggots. Coupled with its festering red skin, it looked abnormally disgusting. Seeing the strange appearance of this monster, everyone could not help but take a few steps back. Rebirth was a very humane game, especially when it came to the design of the game's NPCs. They were all very exquisite. Even the most repulsive villains were made to look mighty and domineering. The wretched and disgusting guy in front of him was even rarer than a god-tier boss. After the monster jumped into the passageway, it kept roaring loudly. Its mouth and nostrils spewed out mucus and saliva, corroding the ground and causing smoke to form. As everyone retreated, they used Detect on it. Greedy Red Devil, LV60. Gold, Elite, HP, 3000000 MP. 50,000 skills. Claws of Greed, Eyes of Greed, Devourer of Greed talents. Poison Corrosion. This kind of trash was actually a level 60 gold elite boss. This was really unexpected. "Did you steal my treasures?" Just when everyone was shocked, the greedy Red Devil also discovered the invading players. It roared and jumped out of the passageway directly towards Wang Yu's group. Seeing the boss jump over, the party leader quickly gave the order, "Formation, formation, block him." Everyone in Finger Heaven was also an elite player. After receiving the order, they quickly formed a formation. The 4 shield bearers in the front row quickly opened up a shield wall. The treasure cave was not spacious. The 4 shield bearers stood side by side, directly blocking the path. The greedy Red Devil was also blocked on the other side of the shield wall. At the same time, the long-range professions behind the shield bearers launched attacks at the greedy Red Devil. The greedy Red Devil was strong and had thick skin. It was not afraid of these attacks at all. Moreover, the poison in its body was quite fierce. Everyone's attacks did not have much effect, and they only barely blocked the greedy Red Devil. However, there were not many people in Finger Heaven, so it was only a matter of time before it ran out of strength. Sure enough, the greedy red devil was blocked for less than 10 seconds. Suddenly, a red light flashed in his eyes, and he pointed his sword at the sky. The 4 shield-bearers in the front row directly turned into red statues, fixed on the spot. Behind the front line, the greedy red devil extended its claws, grabbed the shield-bearer at the front called Rock Solid, and threw him whole into its mouth. F***CK. Seeing the greedy red devil actually swallowing someone whole, everyone's scalp went numb. Even Wang Yu broke out in a cold sweat. Not to mention how terrifying it was to be swallowed by a monster, the greedy red devil's rotten teeth alone made Wang Yu's stomach churn. However, this was nothing. The scariest thing was yet to come. Rock Solid, who was swallowed by the greedy red devil, did not die. After being swallowed, the brat was quickly excreted by the greedy red devil. Apart from the HP bar on his head decreasing, the shield in his hand had disappeared. Moreover, the greedy red devil's HP that had been hit by Finger Heaven and the others had instantly recovered. Firm as a monolith threw away his shield with a look of despair on his face. He threw a taunt at the greedy red devil. Seeing this, the greedy red devil very considerately fulfilled his wish. He grabbed Firm as a monolith and stuffed it into his mouth again. After being excreted for the second time, the helmet on Rock Solid's head disappeared as well. After being excreted twice in a row, no one would be in a good mood. The rock-hard spirit absent-mindedly activated charge, and was about to escape when the red demon extended its claws again, grabbed the rock-hard spirit's hind leg, and stuffed it into its mouth for the 3rd time. Looking at the greedy red devil eating and defecating, for some reason, everyone could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva at such a disgusting scene. He's aiming. Who designed this boss? Is he trying to disgust us to death? Everyone had the same thought in their minds. Chapter 869. Bosses and skills that could destroy players' equipment had always been criticized by the players. However, in front of this monster, the players had completely ignored the fact that it could devour players' equipment. Everyone's attention was now on Solid Rock. Damn, what does it feel like to be reincarnated in the boss's body, especially since the boss's appearance wasn't very hygienic. Looking at Solid Rock's state, he was probably on the verge of a mental breakdown. Hurry up and save him. The party leader, Don't Shoot, felt bad seeing his underlings being tortured by the boss. However, everyone looked at each other and didn't dare to take a step forward. What a joke. This guy was so disgusting. No one would be able to survive if they went up. As the saying went, it didn't matter who died. Moreover, everyone had seen that 4 shield bearers couldn't even last a breath. Even if everyone went up, they wouldn't be able to handle this guy. They would just be sending themselves to their death. Just when everyone was hesitating to move forward, a figure flew over the crowd, made a few turns in the air, and jumped to a place not far away from them that was as firm as a rock. That tall and sturdy figure, as well as his agile movements, needless to say, there was no one else other than Wang Yu. This was the 4th time Solid Rock had been pulled out by the greedy red devil. His clothes had already been swallowed, and he didn't have much HP left. The greedy red devil turned around with familiarity and extended its claws towards Solid Rock. Wang Yu clapped his hands, and a white light rolled out, pulling Solid Rock to his side before the greedy red devil could. The greedy red devil was slightly shocked. It swept its claws horizontally and followed behind Unbreakable Rock. Wang Yu turned around and blocked in front of Unbreakable Rock. With a thunder stomp, he kicked Unbreakable Rock back to his camp. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed. This was a guy who had been pooped by the boss 4 times. Who dared to get too close to him? Only Ming Du didn't avoid it. Instead, he walked over and asked, "How is it, bro? How does it feel to be pooped?" Solid Rock. Pooped. At the same time that Rock Hard was sent flying, the greedy red demon's claws had already reached out and grabbed Wang Yu tightly in his hands before sending her straight into his mouth. This greedy red devil clearly wasn't very familiar with eating humans. It was also possible that the people he had eaten in the past had never resisted, so he only grabbed Wang Yu's body and didn't grab her arm. Wang Yu flipped his hand, and his glove turned into a sword. He held the sword with both hands and stabbed it into the greedy red devil's higu acupoint. Roar! The greedy red devil let out a blood-curdling screech. He involuntarily let go of Wang Yu's hand, causing Wang Yu's body to fall to the ground. However, the greedy red demon's tone was even worse than his foot. When he screamed, Wang Yu was right next to his mouth. Her body was instantly poisoned. The greedy red devil was huge and fast. Taking advantage of Wang Yu's reduced speed, it lifted its leg and stomped on Wang Yu. In the blink of an eye, the moment the greedy red devil's foot landed, Wang Yu rolled to the back of the greedy red devil's foot. He raised his sword and accurately stabbed the Kunlun acupoint behind the greedy red devil's ankle. In the blink of an eye, just as Red Devil's foot landed on the ground, Wang Yu rolled on the ground and rolled behind Red Devil's foot. She raised her sword and accurately stabbed the Kunlun acupoint on the back of Red Devil's ankle. Roar! Despicable thief! The greedy Red Devil roared in pain again. He turned around and reached out to grab Wang Yu. However, the reduced speed only decreased its movement speed, not its rolling speed. Wang Yu rolled again and once again flipped into the greedy red devil's blind spot. He casually stabbed the sword into the boss' ankle again. It seemed like Wang Yu was determined to break the boss's hamstring. The greedy red devil wanted to grab Wang Yu and eat him alive. However, its body was too big, and its turning speed was far slower than Wang Yu's rolling speed. Just like that, Wang Yu's feet kept moving. No matter how the greedy red devil turned, Wang Yu would accurately stab the sword into the boss' ankle before the boss could turn around. Seeing that Wang Yu had aggroed the boss, the party leader stopped firing and ordered, "The boss is pinned down, attack. F***ck, don't mess around." Wuji saw that the party leader was going to forcefully support the boss and quickly stopped him. However, the party leader was the boss of Finger the Sky. The players of Finger the Sky would not listen to Wuji. They all drew their bows and gathered their magic, once again attacking the greedy red devil. Boom 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 boom. The arrows and magic bombarded the greedy red devil's body, causing damage to float up. "A bunch of retards," Wuji cursed. He pointed at a thick stone pillar not far away and said to the Chuanjian players, "Quickly hide behind the stone pillar." The Chuanjian players were not part of the team. After receiving Wuji's order, they all retreated and hid behind the stone pillar. When the party leader saw that the Chuanjian players were slacking off, he couldn't help but say in disdain, "What are you afraid of?" However, before the party leader could finish his sentence, the greedy red devil spread its wings and suddenly flew into the air. It sat down on Finger the Sky's formation. F***ck, quickly raise your shields. The party leader was shocked and hurriedly gave the order. Finger the Sky's shield warriors raised their shields hurriedly. At that time, the greedy red devil also descended from the sky and smashed down viciously. As the shield warriors had raised their giant shields in advance, Finger the Sky's players were not killed by the impact. However, their formation was directly disrupted. The party leader and the others hurriedly turned and ran. At the same time, the greedy red devil's eyes emitted a dazzling red light again. The red light spread through the cave. Everywhere it went, everyone turned into red statues. Only Chuanjian's group, who were hiding behind the stone pillar, survived. The greedy red devil was an elite boss. Its aggro process was different from normal bosses. The greedy red devil was selective. The greedy red devil couldn't catch Wang Yu and was running around anxiously. The party leader, "Don't shoot and let the others attack him." Wasn't this just looking for excitement? Now, they were all turned into figurines by the boss. Who knew if someone would suffer from the 5-grain reincarnation cycle? Finger the Skies players were frozen behind. They all prayed, "Please don't eat me, eat the one next to me." The greedy red devil seemed to have OCD. It looked around and extended its claws towards the pitiful Firm Rock again. Just as Firm Rock was about to become *T for the 5th time, Wang Yu, who had been slowed down, had already rushed over slowly. Wang Yu ran behind the greedy red devil, leaped up, and stepped on the back of the greedy red devil's head with thunder stomp. The greedy red devil's head was kicked forward, and Firm Rock fell to the ground. Then, the greedy red devil turned around and was about to bite Wang Yu. Chapter 870. Roar! The greedy red devil roared and slammed its claws towards Wang Yu. At the same time, its eyes began to condense red light again. Wang Yu swung his staff and blocked the claws of the greedy red devil. He then flew into the air, head down and feet up. Bang! Bang! Borrowing the strength of the red devil's claws, Wang Yu instantly flew in front of the greedy red devil. He kicked out with both legs, hitting the red devil's eyeballs. 23333-42544. As long as it was an animal, the eyes were a weak point. Not only did Wang Yu's 2 kicks deal critical damage, they also forcefully interrupted the red devil's skill. Without waiting for the red devil to counterattack again, Wang Yu swung his left hand and the flying dragon cable flew out, wrapping around the red devil's neck. Wang Yu grabbed the other end of the flying dragon cable and jumped, swinging behind the red devil. Both of his legs suddenly descended with thunder stomp, kicking the red devil's calf. Thunder stomp was Wang Yu's ultimate skill. Even the clone of an ultimate boss like an apostle couldn't handle it, let alone a level 60 gold boss. The red devil's hind legs softened from Wang Yu's kick, and it knelt on the ground on one knee. Wang Yu took this opportunity to land on the ground and rolled a few times. He pulled the flying dragon cable back and forth between the red devil's legs, tying the red devil's legs into a dead knot that he was best at. Although the red devil was an elite boss, its intelligence was not comparable to an intelligent boss. After being kicked a few times by Wang Yu, the red devil's aggro returned to Wang Yu. It got up and was about to attack Wang Yu, but before it could stand up, its head tilted to the side and it fell to the ground. Wang Yu was really sinister. She was afraid that the greedy red demon wouldn't die, so she actually tied his legs and neck together. What the heck? How could a boss not die? Just as the red devil was tripped, Wang Yu flew to the back of the red devil's head and rode on its neck. She pressed down on the red devil's head with one hand and raised her sandbag-sized fist with the other and smashed it on the red devil's head with a clang-clang. The red devil naturally didn't want to be beaten for nothing. It struggled to get up, but its legs and neck were tied together. Wang Yu's fists were tight, so it couldn't break free at all. Party leader Don't Shoot and the others were pinned a few meters behind Wang Yu. Seeing Wang Yu's ferocious appearance at such a close distance scared the hell out of them. Originally, Big Bear and the others thought that Yu Huiqing and the other big guilds were suppressed by a small group like Chuanjin. Now, they completely understood that it wasn't wrong to be suppressed by such a person. After all, even a boss like the Red Devil wasn't treated differently in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu's punches were like a storm. After about 60 or 70 punches, the Red Devil's HP finally dropped to 70%. After all, the flying dragon lasso was just an object. It couldn't even be considered a weapon. How could it withstand the gold boss's struggle? Finally, with a snap, it was torn into dozens of pieces by the Red Devil. Wang Yu was also sent flying by the impact. At that time, party leader Don't Shoot and the others' crowd control effects had been removed. Without saying anything, they all ran to the side of Chuanjin. After experiencing a crisis where they almost turned into shit, party leader Don't Shoot and the others were quite frightened. This was especially true for Firm Rock, who was covered in cold sweat. Boss Wuji, I'm really sorry. Party leader Don't Shoot quietly walked behind Wuji and said apologetically. Wuji laughed coldly. Who asked you to blindly give orders? If it wasn't for our old cow, you would have turned into shit by now. Yes, yes, yes. Party leader don't shoot nodded. Now everyone listen to my orders. Who else has any objections? Wuji looked around. As long as it's Boss Wuji's orders, we'll do it. Party leader don't shoot hurriedly said. Yes, yes, yes. We'll follow your orders. This time, the players at Finger Heaven didn't ignore Wuji anymore. They all expressed their determination to follow his orders. Wuji heard this and laughed. All right then, everyone attack the boss. Hearing Wuji say this, the expressions of the players at Finger Heaven turned ugly. Party leader don't shoot said pitifully, Boss Wuji, we already know our mistakes. Please don't play with us. Wuji rolled his eyes at party leader don't shoot and said, I don't play with men. Didn't you say that you'll listen to me? You're not going to listen anymore? But, no buts. If you don't listen to my orders, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Old cow can also abandon the boss and leave at any time. Wuji stared at party leader don't shoot. His eyes burned with an unquestionable tone. After hearing Wuji say this, party leader don't shoot had no more words. Right now, the boss was being tanked by Wang Yu alone. If Wuji wasn't happy and Xuanzhen's people didn't do it, then this dungeon would definitely be wiped. This was related to the rise and fall of the guild. Was it more important to die or offend Wuji? This was a very simple choice. Okay. We'll listen to you. Party leader don't shoot sighed and said to the ranged professions, attack. Since their boss had already given the order, the players at Finger Heaven had no reason to disobey. After all, party leader don't shoot was not only the guild leader but also the boss. They had real money in their hands. Let alone becoming shit in the virtual game, they would even eat shit. Following party leader don't shoot's order, everyone's attacks were thrown at the greedy Red Devil. At this moment, the greedy Red Devil and Wang Yu were fighting back and forth. Of course, the greedy Red Devil was being attacked by Wang Yu. However, without the control effect of the flying dragon cable, Wang Yu's damage wasn't as good as before. However, the greedy Red Devil wasn't able to hit Wang Yu, so it was even more unhappy. When Finger Heaven's attacks arrived, the greedy Red Devil's aggro was pulled away again. It spread its wings and flew up. The greedy Red Devil threw down Wang Yu and flew high up. Then, it descended from the sky and sat down on everyone. The moment the greedy Red Devil sat down, Wuji snapped his fingers and said, Retreat! Everyone immediately scattered like birds and beasts. The greedy Red Devil sat down on a stone pillar. They didn't know what kind of cave this hidden treasure was, for there to be something as terrifying as stalactites in it. As the saying goes, having thorns in the sky is boundless happiness. Just like that, the greedy Red Fiend felt great. 501447 The health bar on the greedy Red Devil's head dropped by a large amount. Seeing this scene, everyone's buttholes tightened, and beads of sweat dripped down like a thunderclap. In the end, the boss was also a victim. He was sent to this place where even birds wouldn't shit. Not only did he not get his treasure back after it was stolen, he was first grabbed by the head by Wang Yu and beaten up. Then, he was shot in the back. This was all because he looked disgusting and like a bad guy. What kind of logic was this? Chapter 871. At the same time, Sword pointing towards the heavens also understood why Quan Zhen's sect was able to suppress a big guild like Blood Alliance. Wang Yu, who could press down on the boss's head and beat it up, was enough to make people feel helpless. Now there was also Wuji, who was cunning and vicious, and a group of experts who didn't play by the rules. Anyone would stay far away from such a small group. Greedy Red Devil was hit in the back by the stone pillar. It roared in pain and struggled to get up. Wuji had worked so hard to trap it. How could he let Greedy Red Devil escape so easily? Wuji raised his chin at Greedy Red Devil and snapped his fingers again. Block it! Spring Soaring waved his staff, and a dark boundary rose up. Een the second followed closely behind, using his shield to block the greedy red devil in a corner. At this time, Wang Yu also rushed over and started punching and kicking greedy red devil. When Chuanjin and Finger Sword saw this, they knew that greedy red devil wouldn't be able to escape this time. They all helped to deal damage, and greedy red devil's HP dropped. During this time, greedy red devil also tried to let go of Eye of Greed a few times. However, with Wang Yu around, things didn't go as he wished. Seeing that greedy red devil was about to use a skill, he immediately took out a knife and stabbed greedy red devil's eyes. This caused greedy red devil to be traumatized, so it covered its head and let everyone attack it. Greedy red devil was only a level 60 boss. No matter how high its HP was, it couldn't handle the damage from a group of experts. After a few minutes, greedy red devil cried out and its HP bar emptied. The party leader let out a long sigh of relief. Such a disgusting boss wasn't invulnerable as long as they found the right way. It was just that its skills were too disgusting. If it wasn't for Chuanjin's help and the party leader not shooting, they probably wouldn't have been able to clear it if they didn't get wiped 8 or 10 times. Come to think of it, Wang Yu would at most tie her up, but Wuji would really destroy her. How many normal people could be as insidious as Wuji? After the boss died, the first thing the boss did was loot its equipment. However, this had nothing to do with the players from Finger Heavenly Sword. This was because all the monsters in the instance dungeon had been taken over by Chuanjin. Of course, Finger Heavenly Sword and the others didn't think that the greedy red demon would give them anything fun. After all, this was the only quest dungeon, and the boss was famous for being stingy. Chuanjin's men looked at each other, but no one stepped forward. It couldn't be helped. The appearance of the greedy red demon was indeed not very good. In the past, everyone wanted to beat up the boss, but now they were actually pushing the blame onto each other. It would be fine if such a filthy thing could touch something good, but the problem was that it knew that it wouldn't give anything good, and it still wanted to touch a hand full of *T. Whoever went would become a laughing stock. Oldly you go. In the end, Wuji chose Mingdu. Mingdu's character wasn't very good, but his luck had always been the best in Chuanjin. Wuji let him touch it just for luck. Otherwise, opening the door and not touching anything would be unlucky. Who knew that Mingdu would immediately lie down on the ground? I suddenly don't feel well. Don't call me. F***ck, how shameless. Everyone looked at him with disdain. Why don't you guys go and touch it? Wuji glanced at everyone. Everyone said, Oldly, do you have medicine? I don't feel well either. Wuji was speechless. Seeing that no one wanted to touch it, in the end, it was the honest Wang Yu who volunteered. I'll touch it. As Chuanjin's top model worker, Wang Yu even dared to hug the boss neck. Touching it was acceptable. Okay, you can touch it. Wuji was helpless. This boss was useless. If they touched it, it might not drop anything good. If they didn't touch it, it would be a waste. Since someone was willing to touch it, they couldn't care less about luck. After getting everyone's approval, Wang Yu walked up and touched Greedy Red Demon's crotch. Greedy Red Demon was tall. Wang Yu, who was 1.86 meters tall, could only reach Greedy Red Demon's crotch. Other than wearing a pair of shorts, his body was covered in abscesses. He could only touch his crotch. As for why Greedy Red Demon didn't lie on the ground after it died, don't ask me anymore. Seeing Wang Yu's sorry state, everyone couldn't help but be happy. Originally, everyone just wanted to see Wang Yu make a fool of himself. Who knew that after Wang Yu touched it, he would pull out a shield. Greedy Ghost Face Shield, Gold, Physical Defense, 150-220 Magic Defense, 130-200 Attack, 40-60 plus 27 Vitality plus 33 Strength. Ghost Face, Passive Skill. 10% chance of causing fear to the target. Firm, Passive Skill. Increases defense by 60%. Activates when the user's HP reaches 50%. Greedy, Passive Skill. 30% chance of stealing the target's attack and converting it into block value. Class requirement: Paladin, Shield Warrior level requirement, 40 item introduction, a normal ghost face shield that was digested by greedy red demon. This is my shield. Seeing the shield in Wang Yu's hand, Firm Rock couldn't help but cry out. Oh? Is that so? Wang Yu was slightly surprised. Firm Rock did have a shield swallowed by the boss. Thinking of this, Wang Yu raised his hand and was about to throw the shield over when Wuji suddenly stopped him. Old cow, don't panic. Then, Wuji stared at Firm Rock and said, How can you say that this is your shield? This ghost face shield is clearly mine. Firm Rock felt wronged. He had turned into *T 4 times in a row. From his weapon to his clothes, everything had been swallowed by the boss. Everyone saw this, so how could the shield not be his? Wuji laughed. Your ghost face shield is a silver equipment, right? This is Greedy's ghost face shield, which is a gold equipment. Ghost face shield was a standard silver equipment. It was quite common on the market because shields had always been a rare item. Sword Point at the Heavens wasn't a big guild like Blood Alliance, so it was normal for elite players to have silver shields. Even though Firm Rock's original Ghostface shield had better stats than the ones on the market, the two skills of the Ghostface shield were not good enough. The most important attribute for a shield warrior was their block value. The greedy Ghostface shield in Wang Yu's hand was able to convert all incoming attacks into block value. Just this attribute alone was enough to turn this equipment from rotten to magical, turning it into a piece of gold-grade equipment. One was silver and one was gold. If they were given to Firm Rock just like that, wouldn't that be too much of a waste? Chapter 872. There was no need to doubt the character of Chuanjin. Even if they were being unreasonable, they would still argue. Moreover, if they were being reasonable, it would be strange if they gave Firm Rock his shield. Although Wang Yu was honest, he wasn't the son of a landlord. Since Wuji had already spoken, Wang Yu obviously wouldn't insist on paying the bill. Wang Yu smiled at Firm Rock and put away his shield. Seeing Wang Yu put away his shield, Firm Rock said with a disappointed expression, I don't have a weapon now. It's okay, we have one. We can rent it to you. Wuji grinned. Everyone. Renting equipment was a common occurrence in the game. The game also had a renting contract. After all, good equipment was in the hands of a few people. Renting equipment allowed the owner to earn money, allowed the players without the equipment to experience the equipment, and allowed the system to earn a processing fee. In short, it was multiple things at once, maximizing the value of the equipment. But they were all in the same team. Not to mention, this equipment was originally related to Firm Rock. Even if it wasn't related, it was reasonable for a teammate to borrow their equipment. But Wuji just wanted to rent it. Captain Don't Shoot didn't know why Wuji was so familiar with this idea. However, Captain Don't Shoot had a lot of feelings in his heart. Look at how shameless Wuji was, look at his method. It was hard for Chuanjin to be weak. We're all in the same team, so don't say that I'm not giving you face. We can discuss the rent. How about 10 gold? Wuji smiled at Captain Don't Shoot. Currently, a piece of silver equipment was only around 40 to 50 gold on the market. Renting it for 10 gold? Wuji's ability to take advantage of the situation was unparalleled. Who was Captain Don't Shoot? He was a super rich person. A mere 10 gold was just disgusting. Even if the rent was extremely expensive, Captain Don't Shoot still generously agreed to rent it. After signing the contract and renting the shield, Wang Yu continued to loot the corp. This time it was a breastplate, greedy rock heavy armor, clothing, dark gold, physical defense, 200-240 magic resist, 160-220 physique plus 33 plus 40 strength heavy armor. Passive skill increases physical and magic defense by 20%. Colossus, passive skill. When player's HP falls to 50%, Colossus form will be activated. player's body size increases by 50%, defense increases by 70%, attack decreases by 70%, and movement speed decreases by 50%. Mischievous Rock. Active skill, becomes immune to all magic damage for 10 seconds. Greed, passive skill. Absorbs damage and converts it into defense. Every stack of greed increases defense by 10%. Maximum of 10 stacks. Skill effect disappears after exit. Required class. Paladin, Shield Warrior level requirement. 45 item introduction. An equipment digested by the greedy Red Devil. It was yet another piece of equipment that had been digested by the greedy Red Demon. Wuji was overjoyed when he saw this piece of equipment. He turned to look at Rock Solid. At this moment, the expression on Rock Solid's face was indescribable. Unsurprisingly, this piece of equipment was still an evolved version of Rock Solid. This mischievous rock heavy armor was originally a decent piece of gold-grade equipment. Now that it had been upgraded, it had gained an additional stack of greed, making its attributes even better. The rental price would probably increase as well. Although he was happy that his own equipment had leveled up, it was no longer his own equipment. Only Rock Solid could understand how frustrating that feeling was. He had no choice. He already had an agreement. Whether it was the party leader Don't Shoot or Rock Solid, he could only suffer in silence. 100 gold. Wuji gestured to the party leader Don't Shoot. Deal. The party leader Don't Shoot sighed helplessly. Wang Yu took the rental contract and muttered, "Do I have to loot another set of equipment?" As it turned out, Wang Yu's guess was right. The next two pieces of equipment were the life helmet of greed and the heroic leggings of greed. These two pieces of equipment were equipment that Rock Solid had been digested by the boss. Although they did not have set attributes, the 4 greed attributes added together were not any weaker than a set. When the party leader Don't Shoot saw that all 4 pieces of equipment had leveled up, he made up his mind and said to Wuji, "Name a price." Wuji already knew that the party leader Don't Shoot would buy them, so he quoted without thinking, 10,000, no bargaining. Wuji's price surprised the party leader Don't Shoot. He had originally thought that he would be ripped off by Wuji, but he did not expect Wuji to only offer 10,000 gold. Spending 10,000 gold on 1 piece of dark gold-grade equipment and 3 pieces of gold-grade equipment was definitely worth it. Even if these pieces of equipment were originally as solid as a rock, the cost of upgrading them to NPCs wouldn't be any less than this. The party leader Don't Shoot was obviously not someone who lacked money. He casually bought the contract of the equipment. The party leader's generosity of spending 10,000 gold made everyone sigh. It was good to be rich. While the Chuanjian players were in awe, Wang Yu wondered in the channel, "Why is it so cheap? This is not your style." Wuji laughed, casting a long line to catch a big fish. "We have to do good deeds once in a while, right?" When the Chuanjian players heard this, they all looked at the party leader Don't Shoot sympathetically. Uncle Nyo was very supportive of doing good deeds, but they were all ordinary people. They could not save the universe or protect the earth. All they could do was subscribe to the official version and occasionally give some tips. Hee. There was still one last chance for him to take advantage of the boss. After handing the contract to the party leader Don't Shoot, Wang Yu extended his hand and looted it. The 4 pieces of rock solid equipment had all been looted, but no one was sure what the 5th piece was. Wang Yu rummaged around the boss's corpse and pulled out something that looked like a vest. Dead man, inner armor. Special, physical defense. 10-10 magic resistance. 20-20 plus 20 agility plus 20 strength. Dead man. After the player is killed, he will have a brief moment of recovery. However, during this moment of recovery, his HP will decrease rapidly. During this period, the player can move and attack. He has 100% lifesteal. His attacks are extremely fast, and each attack will reduce the target's maximum HP by an additional 10%. All the player's skills will be replaced with Death Impulse, providing him with an explosive movement speed bonus. Class requirement. General level requirement. 1 item introduction. The words of the Red Devil of Greed's wife come true. This is the legendary inner armor? Seeing the equipment in Wang Yu's hand, everyone's jaws dropped. What's that? Wang Yu looked at the vest in his hand in confusion and asked. Guru Iron Ox doesn't know about inner armor? The party leader Don't Shoot asked in surprise. Wuji's face was full of disdain. He's just a rookie, what does he know? P.S. Recommend a book, Castellan Training Log. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.